Hello and welcome to episode 453 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt and joining me as always is the creator of the comic series Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And because we keep the cameras on, he tries to put me off every week, but instead I'm just massively aroused. It's Tony Esmond.
Hello.
Yeah, I see you got your Batman mask on.
It's a cool one, this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't quite fit, so I have to sort of stick it on the end of my nose.
I've noticed your Batman voice is very much like your Green Arrow voice.
It's not like my old Sage voice that I did recently.
What Batman era is that? Is that Affleck?
I think it must be, yeah. Yeah, it is. Batman vs. Superman era.
Oh, dear, I can't have everything. Anyway, we're joined by someone else this week to the rest of the world. He's known as a mild-mannered, do-gooding, general all-round swell guy and man about town. But to us, he's the art maestro and creative wunderkind, known as Forpe. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Ching, ching, ching.
Yeah. You look like in the 90s you could have been a member of The Farm, singing All Together Now with that new Barnet you got there.
Right,
that's a pretty good reference, yeah.
Yeah.
I like them. Yeah.
As you know, Forpe's been on the show a couple of times, but we're going to be talking about quite a creative subject. And is there anyone more creative than Forpe?
No.
Did you paint
You're
that
not
picture
supposed to
behind
say
your
it.
head?
We're supposed to say it.
All right.
Did you
I'm
paint
more
that
creative
picture?
than Falp, that's for sure. I can tell you that.
He doesn't listen to this show.
No, that's fine.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. He's
but
actually a real nerd in real life. He's not as cool as everyone thinks.
Oh,
Bless him.
wow. What are you saying? Only nerds listen to this show?
Yes.
Yeah, we'd be
I am.
lucky.
Wow.
The lowest.
Thank
nerds.
you, everyone, for listening to this show.
Yeah,
Thanks,
cheers, thank
everybody.
you.
The numbers have been up recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, not the only thing, Tony.
Probably nearly in double digits,
Yeah.
both on Tony's count and listeners.
Oh, my.
I downloaded it 4 times. That makes 6 listeners.
Yes, it's going to be that kind of show this week. But thank you very much for listening. Tony took his glasses off. We've got to stop making mention of the video now that we've got
The
Yeah.
visual
My
references,
attractive
yeah.
face.
Yeah.
I know, I just can't take it. And you know what else I can't take? How many amazing comics you can find on our sponsor. Yes, the lovely sponsor, Global Comics. It's the place to go for digital comics. There's a huge library of titles available to read from thousands of indie creators to hundreds of publishers like Image, Boom, Tokyo Pop, TKO Studios, SourcePoint Press, Humanoids, to name but a few. I'm running out of breath naming those, and I left quite a few publishers out that I see on the list. And the catalogue is growing all the time. Gents, what do you want to shout out this week that's on Global Comics?
As we are all fans of having sex with robots, and that chance is getting closer, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we'll
Or
find it.
they're going to do it to us.
Count of the days.
I'm game. I'm an old man.
Yeah.
I don't care. You can read Alex and Ada, the whole compilation, which is about a man who has sex with a robot, on Global Comics as well. Really good. I've started that.
Is that
actually.
one? Is that
One of the Lunar Brothers and
Lunar
Sarah
Brothers.
Vaughan, I think it is, doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. What happened with the Lunar Brothers?
That's great.
They were.
I think didn't they split up?
Yeah, I think so.
Can brothers split up? I don't know, but they stopped working together, didn't they? I haven't seen any of their stuff for a while now.
Yeah,
Don't know.
It was about like 5-10 years ago. They were the big.
Yeah,
loads of stuff,
we had Sword and the girls and all this sort of
Oh,
thing, didn't
yeah.
we? Yeah. What did you fancy reading on there, Daniel?
There's some fucking thing called June.
Oh, what the hell's all that about?
Gee.
They got a
Some
That's
special,
never
haven't they?
gonna
They got a
take
whole
off.
section for June, haven't
some
they?
weird fucking thing.
Oh,
it's got loads of
God.
sand
Hang
in
on,
it
Dan.
and worms.
Is that June, June?
Well, they spelled it with a D, which is weird.
Oh,
D?
what?
Like a sand dune?
Yeah, sand
Oh.
dunes.
Who wants to read about that?
I've kind of seen that taken off. But if
Did
you
you
want to
ever-
read about that, there's like a whole plethora of books on
Did you
Global
ever read
Comics.
Dune, the Desert Planet? That fucking joke book they did. Do you remember that?
No.
No.
There was like I'll get a picture of it sent to you. Yeah, there's like a joke. Cowboys of Caladan are in it and all this sort of thing. It's like a piss take on June. Well, I went and saw that Juno movie and I thought it was going to be about, warriors in the desert. It's just about some bird getting pregnant underage. I didn't really know what was going on.
And drinks a lot of Sunny D, which isn't good for you.
Yeah.
But complaining to the cinema manager, where's the blue eyes? What the fuck's going on?
There was absolutely no spice in this.
Where's the eyes of a bat?
Oh,
Even though my previous joke alluded to the fact that I didn't know what June was.
No. We've totally ruined the bit. But either way.
They've got House Atreides and House Harkonnen, and they got the miniseries on there as well, haven't they? So Harkonnen's just finished, isn't it? I think. So
not
they're
read that
moving
one.
on to that one, yeah.
Look, I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week. We need to have like a June month. I'm saying this for
Week,
Tony
not
and
a
Dan,
month, week.
Tony and Dan, because they're massive nerds when it comes to this. So I'll just sit there quite.
We had a massive conversation about what a still suit would do if you do a jizz earlier.
Yeah.
It'd reclaim it, I'm sure.
It would, of course it is. Yeah.
And then you drink it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know how Stilgar spits on the table when he meets.
Is that
wonder
what it is? No.
What if you did a jizz? They pay that well ago. Thank you.
I mean, to be honest, that would have been a hell of a scene.
Waste not, what not?
Yeah.
Right,
Maybe that's
bang.
in the porn parody.
Oh, probably.
Do they do porn parodies still?
Of course.
I'm sure they do.
It was lovely.
Yeah, I
wasn't
hope
it?
so. Yeah.
I don't like
It was
pornography.
lovely.
I find it
What,
demeaning to
like
women.
it was a
golden age.
the golden age of filmmaking.
The Justice
Star
League
Wars.
porn parody. Game of Bones. What a classic.
Wasn't there like they did a Pirates of the Caribbean one, and it was like a ridiculously large budget for the, the show?
I tell you what,
Allegedly.
though, was it Matt Simmons, who we all love, and
Yes.
he does all the
Brilliant.
weird stuff. He was talking, and one of the groups of him was talking about a Pikachu porn, and I was like,
Oh, hang on.
"It's in the thing," and he said, "Yeah, it's horrifying," and that's what I
God.
didn't know. But he
Yeah.
went,
What's it called? Pokemon? Anyway, you can
I
find
think
it.
it's Pikachu.
Is it people in costumes? I need to know, or is it animation?
Yeah, no, it's people in costumes, and he sent me pictures, and
Where's
I
the
can't
very
see
What do you
it.
mean
There
he
is
sent?
similitude
Oh,
there for that
God.
one.
Oh, my
No,
God.
not sexual pictures, just pictures of
just like-
characters.
People in.
But they were so scary, man. Like,
This sounds brilliant.
I tell you
you
what.
know what Matt's like, though. He's just solid gold, that guy.
You
Yeah,
would be
he's a
better
dude,
off
he's a dude.
reading some fantastic digital comics, and on the Global Comics app, you can read not that
Well,
filth,
it's-
but what Dan and Tony have been talking about, as well as you can follow creators, set reading state filters, and release notifications for books you're looking forward to checking out in the future. Like recently, I was very much in something is killing the children. Just ignore him. Just ignore him. It's what Tony does. He likes to play with tech from the 80s.
The bygone
while we're trying to
eras.
do
60s.
60s.
Oh wow!
It's kind of
Wow.
camera.
It's a
thing, isn't it?
tricorder from Star
Yeah.
Trek TOS. That better not be your penis with eyes drawn on it.
All they're doing, listeners, by ruining this ad, is forcing me to stop the cameras from now on.
I have to say, if
but I'm not
Global
gonna-
Comics stick with us after this,
It'll be a miracle. It'll be a miracle.
This is a good advert. I think
yeah.
how long this advert has gone on for, though.
Yeah.
It's not all
That's
advert, though.
good.
But if you happen to be a creative yourself, then you can publish your digital comics on Global Comics for free. They offer loads of great tools for indie creators to help with publishing, marketing, and more. So if you're an avid comics reader, creator, or maybe just someone new to the hobby that's listened to this show, and I don't know how it's happened, but maybe you want to start reading comics, it can't be anything that we've said. But you want to check out some great
Weirdos.
stories, Global Comics is the place for you. So go to globalcomics.com, that's comics with an X. You can download the app now on the Apple App Store or Google Play and start reading and publishing digital comics like never before. And I've just got to say a big thanks to them for putting up with this, because after a few weeks of this,
They're the lucky
lovely-
ones,
yeah.
Vince. They're the
It's
lucky
an-
ones.
It's an insane app, though.
It's great.
Like,
There's
I went
so
on
much
it
stuff
last
in it.
week, and I was just like, it was one of those things where you hear they've got this, that, and the other on it, and you think, well, they've got some image on it, and they've got some humanoids and stuff. They've probably got a couple of bits, but it's absolutely rammed.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it going, I'm only paying this small amount of money for all this stuff.
Great.
How the fuck are they making
I
any
think-
money?
I was thinking, I got my renewal today for the Marvel app, and it's similar. The Marvel app I pay 60 odd quid a year, and I read
It's the whole back catalogue of Marvel,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
literally thousands of comics.
Yeah, exactly, Tony.
Yeah.
So you don't need to buy them week on week anymore.
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop it.
Mug.
Stop
Cutting
letting
back.
them mug you.
I was going to give a tip. If you're going to upload your comic to Global Comics, I think this is the same as Comic House. But if you've got a PDF, you've got to do the old outline fonts and flatten it, because I've had a couple of times where I've loaded it. You kind of get all the weirdness kind of going on.
You get a shift.
You got
Yeah.
to JPEG it. JPEG it.
Yeah, that's why I was JPEG it. The other thing I might say, the people who just put their digital version of their book on there, so you get like the cover with the little outline marks on the.
Oh, the trim marks.
Fucking make
Yeah.
That
it.
is
Do
lazy.
it. Yeah,
That's
well
really
lazy.
lazy.
There's a couple of the bigger companies doing that, and I'm thinking, come on,
That's-
guys.
Fuck's
I mean, that's
sake.
literally the fucking print file. You just
Yeah, it's
upload
literally. Yeah, they just put in the
Could
print file.
not get lazier.
Yeah,
Could
Yeah.
not get lazier. Wankers.
yeah.
It's-
Oh, thankfully I haven't read any comics like that because all the
I've not seen one of
comics
those.
I read are great.
Yeah.
I think it was Incorruptible. I'm going to name it Incorruptible, the Mark Waid series.
I got a trade. Was it a trade or two from that? Was that?
Yeah, Irredeemable, Incorruptible, and then there was another one, wasn't there? I can't remember the other one. Yeah. I think I'm preferring Incorruptible. Actually, it's quite a good little series.
Yeah.
Incorruptible.
What's that one he's got about the kids in the class? I didn't really.
Ignited.
Ignited. Yeah, man, that's fucking a weird
Yeah, I didn't
one.
dig that one so much.
No.
I like his DC work at the moment, I have to say. Yeah.
Okay.
Was that Mark Waid? Is it Mark Waid? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, read all of those comics on our sponsorship ad on the sponsors. So, but this week, of course, we've drafted and a bit helped, but it's a bit of a creative topic because I think over the years, a few of us have read an issue or two in this kind of medium. I think our guest this week has been creating in that kind of medium.
I have.
So we decided to look at a side of comics that inspires creativity, goes beyond language barriers, and can potentially be some of the most effective forms of medium that you can find. That is the silent comic. And what do we mean by silent? Well, for one, it's a misnomer because comic books don't make any noise. But we are talking about those issues of books where actions like truly do speak louder than words because there's no real words on the page. So we thought we'd just explore that sort of side of comics because some of the most effective, I mean, we've all read them, I guess. Some of the most effective issues that I've seen or like sort of took me by surprise had like no words in them. Has it been the same for you guys? How do you feel about those kind of issues?
The thing is, I was thinking about it today, and the thing is with life is you don't talk all the time, do you? And most of my day is spent listening because I'm a married man or being quiet. And the thing is, there's a lot of things that you don't talk during, don't you? So I was thinking about this today. You don't talk when you're chasing someone, or being chased. You don't talk when you're fighting with someone. There's all these. They seem to have it's like a Shakespearean monologue going on, soliloquy going on during.
Don't you think that's a bit from Stan Lee, who seemed to just want to fill everything with a speech bubble? They
a bit of personality. Yeah. And the other thing is, you don't often talk when you're having sex. I called it making love in my notes, but
no,
I mean,
maybe you can ask for directions, but other. Well,
you can ask. Well, at the end, you hear me sobbing, but I'm normally on my own. So, but
I never speak to my wife during sex, unless she brings up.
Write that down. That's a good one.
But I mean, most of your life is spent not talking. I know we're saying that, but we spend. Why have we got the cameras on? Why have we got
talking?
So it's only natural to me. And there's characters who it suits more than others, like the Punisher. Punisher don't. If you're imagining the real him as a real person, he's not talking much, is he?
Yeah, but some of the most effective. Yes, some of the most effective Punisher issues is the narration in his head because he doesn't really. If you look at how much he's saying compared to what he's thinking, I mean, we had Garth Ennis on. One of the classics is if you compare the number of words in his speech bubbles compared to what's in his narrative sort of balloons is a vast difference.
Yeah. In fact, he wrote, we're going to talk about it in a minute, but I read through the 2001-2002 Nuff Said project that Marvel put out, and Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon did a Punisher issue. It's Punisher number 7. I think it's like volume 4 or something. And that's all about him hunting down this bloke and going through various people, showing pictures, being pointed in directions, and then the last scene is him shooting him from a rooftop across the road. Now, you shoot someone from a rooftop across the road, there's no conversation there, is it? No. And so it perfectly suits that story for the Punisher. He's this sort of lone hunter trying to find him, hunts him down, kills him. Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think there's this. You're right. There's certain characters it suits, and certain characters it doesn't.
Also, kind of the silent comic also usually means the absence of any kind of narration boxes or anything like. It's not just not characters talking. It's usually just art on its own.
Yeah.
Like you said, T, not everyone gets.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the best example of this is that event, the Nuff Said event. So, Bill James and Joe Quesada basically challenged them. He said, I think they put this in one of the comics. We got the best set of writers and artists in the industry. I'm challenging you to tell a story where no one talks. And some of them did it well, and some of them did it better.
Probably. Okay.
Yeah, some of them just seemingly just took word balloons out of a story, and it didn't work as well.
You can't. You just can't do that, can you? You can't.
Yeah.
It's a different type of story that you're telling, isn't it? When it's
and some of them related to dreams, which I found an interesting option that they got given. So they've gone, I think Exiles issue 7, and I think it's issue 123 of X-Force. They basically it's an experience or a trip or a dream, a hallucination in a way, and that has been silent. Now that's easier to do, I think.
And I would say this may seem controversial, and there may be, these might be done quite well, but for me creatively, that's a bit of a cop out, because you're leaning on the it doesn't necessarily all have to make sense, or there's some weirdness going on, or because it's a dream, it can be so visual. For me, it's more effective when this is real, just that we're watching it with the sound off, to make that sort of term.
Let me tell you what the Exiles comic's about. Then I think you might warm to that one rather than the other one.
Probably the execution's really good. I think it's
an interesting one.
Yeah,
I think it's when they're given that project, they need to have an idea, don't they? They need to say, right, this is there's something. We'll talk about a comic that Forpe mentioned in the chat we had earlier. But all of the Exiles get a break because they're in this, they're sort of reality hopping, aren't they? There's a group of them, and they all get a break to book into the Marvel Inn, which is like a hotel, and they all get their own rooms, and they all fall asleep, and they all dream about things. And the Thunderbolt character dreams about running across the mountains and chasing an animal. And to me, that works fine. And it also falls into that thing we talked about Garth with last week, 2 weeks ago, where there's a pause in the action, allows you to assess everything, and also to bring out personality and character. And I think with that, they did that quite well to me. But the other one, the X-Force one, it was like fucking taking a tab of acid and just reading a comic. They just went there with it. Which, to be fair, is it Dupe? Dupe was sort of center stage for that one. But with that one, not as good for me. Interesting visually, but from a story-wise, not as good. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly had it where we've read some stuff that visually is so spectacular and can be completely off the wall that the word balloons and the special effects are getting in the way. That's I would like to see this. I'd like to see this without all of that. I mean, go on.
I was going to say, it's people like like Seth. I really think people like that. Those sort of cartoonists or artists do it really well.
Woodring was the one you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Woodring and well, I mean, Seth, more from a kind of, not the fact that it's totally silent, but in terms of like how he tells a story, you'll have like words and things going on, and then he'll pause it for like X amount of pages. So you kind of breathe, take a break, and then you're kind of back into it. And I think, like you were kind of saying earlier on about Punisher and stuff like that, like good action comics, any comic, it is nice when you get to a run of pages which don't have any words in it and it's visual. If it suits, like if Punisher's walking through the city, like Tony alluded to earlier on, you wouldn't really, maybe you're thinking stuff, but there's no real sounds going on, maybe a few kind of noise effects and that going on, and that actually builds tension and pressure and atmosphere, doesn't it, if the visuals are right. And then when words and stuff come back into it, you're kind of clicked back into the story. So I think I totally agree with what you guys are saying. It's that kind of,
I think for a lot of comics, sci-fi, superhero, there's that suspension of disbelief that is added as part of, we naturally believe it when a character goes underwater and can talk to someone else, or goes into space and has this massive fucking conversation. Yeah. It's almost like there's that, we're used to that. We accept it when the Silver Surfer's talking to Galactus in outer space. We know, but it can't happen. But
I think an interesting thing that happens, especially when you drop a silent issue in like a run of books that have always, you can always hear the words, is, as comic readers, we're accustomed, comics are telling us what's being said and what's being heard. Comics aren't making that noise. When we read that noise, we hear that noise in our heads. And a silent comic does nothing of that. It sort of says, right, here's the action. What does it, what is happening? It asks a little more of the reader.
Yeah, it leans on like imagination. So when you hear see an explosion or something, you're doing more of that lifting yourself.
I read.
It's dependent on a lot of things,
because you're adding in your own.
It's dependent on the ability of storytelling as well. Much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at Carthago. I just picked it up. And the reason I picked that one up when we were talking about this is Carthago, there's an awful lot of text going on there. There's a lot of story.
Yeah.
And yet there are moments...
A lot of exposition in it, isn't there?
There are moments with the giant shark attacks when some of these real visceral moments are happening. There's no sound effects and there's no words. Things just happen. And they're more... It works better because of that.
Yeah.
And that led me to think, when you have a story that has a lot of words in it, is the action stronger when you don't have
potentially
sound to it?
Yeah.
You've got that juxtaposition of having lots of words and then having none.
Yeah.
But then,
I like that. Yeah. It gives you that little break, doesn't it? That little taster. Yeah.
I think as well, what also happens in these kind of silent issues of things is that you have to, I don't know about you guys, but there's been times where I've read a few of these books and maybe I've gone like 6 or 7 pages later and I'm like, how the fuck did they get there? And I have to like go back.
Yeah.
And then there'll be like a real small detail because I've been going through the panels so fast, because that's what you do when you're reading, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You have to almost slow down and take everything in because you're like, there is something in this page where it's going to mean something in 7 pages time if I don't keep up with kind of what's going on.
Yeah, the speed of reading is really important, isn't it? When you come to comics, sometimes it really. I think if you're reading too much on a page, it does stop you taking in the reality of what you're meant to be reading, the verisimilitude of it.
It's weird that because like obviously you read normal textbooks, it's no problem. But like if I get a comic page and there's loads of text on it, suddenly it's like, oh fucking hell,
yeah,
a drag.
Yeah. But we'll read a 500-page novel.
Yeah,
it's like
that's just what it is. I guess it's maybe just I don't want to see that much text in a comic. I don't know what the thing is there. But... The
typography is usually shit though.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Like if there's loads of words in a panel, the way it's crammed in, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a lot of information, it's crammed in, it's hard. Whereas if it's in a novel, it's usually spaced out.
But one of the differences is that like a comic is usually it's dialogue heavy, isn't it? A lot of the time. Whereas a novel, we're reading 500 words, but we're reading Tony walked into the room. His trousers were off. He shouted, "There's the word," and that's the word balloon.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You shared a page recently.
That's
Tony.
page 1 of our next comic. Just so clear.
You shared a page recently, didn't you, Tony? Of like a space comic, and it was like, holy fuck, the amount of exposition on one page.
Oh, that weird comic I found on Global Comics. The one
I was like,
have you ever been late night gone through Amazon Prime and just found there's like some weird film made about the reality of aliens or Bigfoot meets the aliens.
There's some really strange stuff
like that.
On the catalogue.
Bizarre stuff on there. It's a comic a bit like that. Yeah, to be fair. Yeah.
Like things like that as well, like when you have like space or a galaxy or things like that. And I find that there's a tendency to do a lot of this in comics. When there's a double page spread of space, there's loads of there's loads of balloons, there's loads of boxes because it's just a 2-page spread about space. But I don't know about you, but in real life, when you look up at the sky, you don't need any fucking words because it's kind of beautiful by itself. Do you know what I mean? And so it feels like when I see a double page spread that's got like this gorgeous like nebula, and there's all these fucking boxes all over it, I'm like, that's really right.
Yeah, I think there's a massive tendency to overwrite these days. Yeah, we see it every day, don't we? Now, and I think you just got to let the visuals breathe sometimes. The beautiful comic art we get.
Would you say that's the editor's fault, or would you say that's the writer's fault for not trusting in the artist to deliver?
I think it depends on the company. I think the publisher, but I think sometimes editors just work in a sausage machine these days, don't they? And they just get it in one end, hopefully check the spelling, bunch it out the other end.
I don't know about you guys. If I've written stuff and then I've drawn the comic. And then, like, I don't need to add in that speech bubble because what the character's emoting, I don't need to say, oh, that's really made me angry or something because the character's shown that and you stripped it out.
Yeah, which goes to the fact that silent comics occasionally or quite often need good facial acting in them.
I was going to go on to that.
Punisher one has Steve Dillon, and he's the fucking master of it, isn't he?
Yeah, legend. Unfortunately, I put my character in a helmet, so that didn't.
But then you got to use other tools, haven't you? Like their hands and body language and. Were we onto that? Why don't you tell us a bit about that for brief? Like,
the guys on the Slack will have seen it, won't they? Because you put it on there.
Yeah. So funny story. I'm listening to the Awesome Comics Pod, And I think it was maybe
Sorry
the
about that.
third time
Yeah.
you guys have said, yeah, everyone should really do a silent comic because it means you can get it globally in any language, and it's a really good thing to have in your kind of, in your
Easy
in your
foreign
list.
rights market.
Yeah, and I was like, listen to these guys. I know what they're talking about, and that was my kind of catalyst. I thought, fuck it, I'll do it. So I did, and I based it on a character called Drusa, and the name escapes me now, but it was basically like Roman for, I think it was like powerful or warrior, something like that. I can't quite remember now, annoyingly. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I did like a Man in the Iron Mask style thing where she's kind of woken up and then she doesn't know where she is, and it starts off just with her, what she can see. But the reason I put her in a helmet is because I needed a reason. I was like, it's got to be silent. So can she hear? Can she speak? And I quite like the fact that we don't know that. Like I've got an idea for it all, but you don't really know that. So it's her kind of finding her way through this kind of trippy, kind of crazy-esque Forpe world, I guess, but with this helmet on. But the challenge was, and me and Tony had done some great books, and I'm always trying to push my ability to tell stories and to do acting, and and it is nails to do it silent, because like you guys have touched on, it's how do you communicate like pain, love, lost, worry, emergencies, all these things going on
but not make it the same thing every time. Do you know what I mean? A pain expression changes, doesn't it?
And because she was in a helmet, I just used her eyes, so you never saw her eyes unless something was happening. So if she was high, they'd be like red, and if she was enraged, they'd be red. Then also I'd use like veins on her body, so she was like, when she goes into kind of rage mode and she starts fighting, the veins kind of pop up to say that she's kind of blood's pumping.
Up. Comics is all about shortcuts, isn't it? You've got to give that sort of metaphor, shortcut thing to say angry. And manga does it the best in many ways, doesn't it?
Massively. I mean, I read a lot of manga, a lot of kind of Dragon Ball Z and all those things that have like hyper over, and One Punch Man, I guess.
And they can have like 30 pages of just one fight, can't they? Just like with
and they're silent actually, going back, aren't they? A lot of those there's no words at all, and which I think, like again, when you guys have spoken about manga before that's had foreign language, had Japanese in it, it doesn't really matter because they're so good at that kind of facial expression,
you can get
how things move. You kind of get it, don't you? You make up
you
your own kind of story, really.
I mean, there is that element, in certain forms of comics. It doesn't apply to everything, where you should be able to read it without the script being added. Totally. Especially fight scenes and stuff like that. There is that extra dimension of adding words to it, but then you should be able to follow the progress of the plot. Not in everything. I'd say that purposely, but to follow the progress of the plot through that. Perhaps a Captain, I don't know, a Thor comic or something, It
was good fun, though. I mean, like, as I kind of went through it, I think, like, the idea is that it's kind of like a three-parter is what I'm working on. Originally, I was just going to do the whole lump and then just bind it up at the end, but I was like, it'd be nice just to break it down into three parts and give those out to friends.
How did you find the balance, though, of like the storytelling? Because you could quite easily sort of say just fight. That's all it's going to be. But if you want to change that sort of tempo,
you got to. So basically, for me, it was like, who is Drusa? What is she doing? Like, what type of person is she? So, for example, like when it kind of starts off, she's walking around and you're seeing these kind of creatures and stuff, and then she nails a deer with a spear, and then she kind of sits down and cooks it and eats it. So it's like, okay, well, you can tell that she can survive in the wild. She knows how to cook, and she's kind of sleeping and whatever. So you've got that kind of idea. And then I think then she kind of gets up and carries on a bit longer. She finds something. No, it's a bit later on. She then like eats something bad, makes her vomit. She falls down. She gets into this huge kind of fight with this kind of beastly creature. And then she obviously kicks its ass. So the way I kind of like paced bits of it was trying to develop bits of her character where you could kind of tell that she could handle herself. She knows how to kind of survive. near the kind of the end of the first book, I won't spoil it, but you see again her having to overcome something and kind of go into survival mode, but not like, I think if someone's surviving, fighting something every single scene, it's like, it gets a bit boring in a silent form. It's a bit lazy. So it's like, well, okay, well, the first scene, she's surviving hunger. The second scene, she's surviving this thing that she has to beat. The third section, she's surviving a huge fall, and then the final kind of act is when she,
boning.
Unlocks the next. Yeah, bone. You wish. I put tits in it, and that's why I was like, Tony,
just for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the final kind of scene is when she sees the next person she's going to interact with, who's really important. He's going to be then. So what I want to do is stage each piece as an act. So the first one is you learn who she is. You learn that she can survive these things and she's a warrior. The second one is that she's going to meet someone that is essentially going to test her, but more potentially like emotionally, and then more to a kind of kindness piece, really, who he's going to help her, because her whole goal is to get this helmet off. The whole way through it, she's trying to get it off. She's trying to remove it. She doesn't know where she is. She's disorientated. She finds this other guy, and then she's like, okay, well, I'll enslave him or whatever. He'll get this thing off me. And then the third act is then coming to terms with how has this happened, and we learn why it's happened. And then she has to make a big decision, which at that point you'll learn, has the character changed or has it not? So it's those sort of things where, like, I kind of roughly planned it out, but you really need all that, because if she's literally just beating people up the whole time, there's no dialogue to kind of. Whereas, like, when me and Tony did Hank, there was loads of fights and loads of crazy shit, but then you had a couple of pages where he would say a word here and there, which made him sound vulnerable. Whereas you can't really do that in a silent comic, like, oh, they're vulnerable in that one, but they're not in that panel, because you're moving too quick and you're not really picking it up. But
I think it's a cheat to do something like, not a cheat really, but you see the mad Sergio maybe did it with a little thought balloon with a broken heart in it or something like that. I think that's all. I think if you're going to challenge yourself to do a silent comic, I would almost stay away from that. Whilst I like it when they do it, I think sometimes you've got to stay with it. But what I was going to say is that Barbarians, to me, almost is the go-to. Barbarians and Cavemen are kind of the go-to for a silent comic, because they're just acting on their primal needs. There's no great debating society or great Red Skull plan that has to be described.
I was going to say, because on the your third book, Forpe, you got there's going to be some exposition there, so that might be quite tricky to sort of get around that. I don't know what the story is in regards to that, but
because it's also the world building, isn't it? I mean, that's like, can be like a massive challenge for a silent comic, especially a silent comic that doesn't. It's not issue 30 of a run we've already read. Do you know what I mean? If you're jumping in and it's silent, that's fascinating to me, because the one I read was Step by Bloody Step. Have you guys read this? This is
no.
This is it's on Global Comics. But I just want to get the creators right. But this is they call it a wordless fantasy, which was immediately something I wanted to ask you guys. Do you think it needs to be like it's on the cover? It says Step by Bloody Step, and you got this cool cover image, and then it says a wordless fantasy. There's something about that. Do people need to be told that, or is that something that will put people off? Is that
you're going to find that out pretty quickly when you open the book up?
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
Nobody's saying anything. It's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is there somebody out there who's going to go, there's not enough words in this comic, I paid £9.99 for it? Is that sort of thing? Yeah.
But generally, if you're picking a book up off the shelf, you'd have a flick through.
And it is, I mean, this is like 192 pages in it, and it starts off. It's like a giant suit of armor that's looking after like a small girl. The book opens, and there's this massive suit of armor. You can see this small child in its hand.
Who's the publisher for that, Pete?
That was Image that did that.
Oh, right, okay.
2022 it is.
Oh, right.
I think. It is Matthias Bergara as well. Is the
right.
So it's the creative team behind Coda, which I haven't read yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. Yeah.
But this was a complete. I mean, it's a wordless fantasy, and it is literally that. But there's a massive world going on.
A 10-issue series or something. Yeah.
And this girl sort of grows up. You see her grow up, and there's quite a big. Some of it thematically, in some ways, felt reminiscent of Porcelain, the story of Porcelain in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it was it was interesting to me. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And like, check it out if you want, because it's a beautiful looking book as well. But they're doing a lot of world building, but there isn't any words to it. But it's doing a lot of emotional storytelling. Like when the mask of this giant suit of armor comes off, you see this figure's face, and it's showing you. When you see someone's tear, like just one single tear running down someone's face, you get the emotion there. And it was fascinating to me to tell this big story of, palaces, of monsters, of this fantasy sort of trek that is almost dreamlike in its own way, and the book is almost, it comes full circle in a lot of kinds of ways, thematically and narratively, as well as having like massive action scenes, but also there's later on there's a scene like in a palace, there's a ballroom scene, there's a dancing scene, and I was struck by how well they communicated what people are thinking by that action.
Is the environment somewhere where they don't talk, or have they just stripped the words out? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, they've stripped it all out, because you really do.
To me, a battle, like you say, like the stoic warrior who says nothing, I kind of think is easier for a wordless comic.
Yeah,
but does it take you out a bit when you go into an environment where everyone is talking but they're not? Does that make sense?
I think what this book does, which is a good example of it, we start off with it's a harsh environment. Someone's walking along. They have something to protect. We know, the shorthand for that. A warrior protecting something. Crossing a harsh land, there are like wolves, and so we see those action scenes of you build up that sort of relationship, so that by the time that it gets into the bigger stuff, you've got the shorthand between the characters. I think, like you say, Tony, if we jump straight into
that would have been. I would have gone. What is there? No sound in this environment, or something? A bit like that. Yeah.
So I think there is you need to get the reader ready for the rhythm of the story, haven't you, in order to tell the bigger books, which it does well. I mean, I think, if anything, it's a joy to look at. But when you were talking, Forpe, earlier, I thought it was interesting because there were moments you read these books so quickly, don't you?
Yeah.
And because of world building, with a silent book, sometimes is some of the world building overlooked because we're reading it so quickly. There were times I went back a couple of times in this book. Not necessarily that I didn't understand what was going on, but I wasn't sure if I missed a couple of things, or if there was a potential. Did that actually? Now that I think about it, was the look on that character's face sad? You have to sort of remind yourself of the emotional storytelling that's going on.
Yeah,
it's a weird one, isn't it? I kind of feel that comics have to suck you in.
Yeah,
they have to. You have to be totally engaged. Yeah, well, that would be a good obvious option, like a June.
That would explain your pull list.
Yeah, the cinema. Hey. But like you've got to be sucked in by the images and carried along by the story in a comic, and that's the beauty of it. And it's also when you think that comics isn't something you can do whilst doing something else. You can watch a film and look at your phone at the same time, almost, can't you? But comics, you need that attention span going on. Now, a wordless comic takes you along, and the prime example of this is Woodring. Like, I'm totally obsessed with seeing every panel and seeing what happens in that. Now, if you add in letters and words and sentences and monologues and conversations, you have to be very careful with what you write, because it can take you out of the story. How many times have we seen someone say something in a comic and it's taken us out?
No.
So and almost the purity of the purest form of comics without words?
I see what you mean. Does
that make sense?
When they're stripped out. I mean, kind of there's people that kind of say about comics that strip out speech balloon thought bubbles, because like that's another tool that only comics can really do. And
we need to return to them, I think.
When you're stripping them out and then you're stripping the speech out as well, like there's a lot of tools you're kind of shedding there to
so if we do agree that maybe if we take them out, doesn't it have a sort of voyeuristic quality to it, where you're not hearing the thoughts of the person, you're not reading the narration of the writer, you're just watching, aren't you? We're just sitting back and watching this thing happen.
I think
almost like a silent film, almost.
I think most comic journalists would be absolutely fucked because they need to be actually told what on earth a
led
book
by
is
the
about
hand.
to even get what it's about. Like the amount of times I read reviews about comics, I'm like, that's not what it's even about. Did you even fucking read it?
And
or PR links,
And
I think to piggyback off that, if it is a sort of a writer collaborating with an artist on a silent comic, the way that people write around that, they feel like they can only write about what they see rather than the story that's being told. Do you know what I mean? Because if a writer's written a silent comic and the script that the artist could get could be very in-depth and there's a story being told, whereas a reviewer will just be talking about the pretty pictures on the page, which isn't...
I don't think I've ever seen a silent comic that's had a writer and an artist duo, I don't think. They always seem to be... So,
I think more commonly in sort of indie graphic novel scene, there tends to be a single person. I know the Marvel
more commercial stuff.
And, the G.I. Joe stuff was two people, but
again, the kind of protagonist not talking. Do you find that more endearing as much? Do you kind of project on them what you think they're feeling, thinking, and saying? Would you find that more endearing and more kind of, I can relate to this character more, like because they're not.
How do we find their, and I mean in speech marks, voice? How do we find their? I mean, we've all read Wolverine comics. We've probably got that almost a voice in our heads every time Wolverine appears. But if he's not saying anything, and that's the only time we've ever seen him, how does his personality show up? I don't know. It's interesting.
Certainly with villains, for instance. How many times have we read or seen something, or everyone else has a voice, but a villain turns up and they don't say much, and it's in what they do that you don't quite know what they're thinking. So there's the danger there, isn't there?
I mean, you have to lay it out almost like as if you're, making a kind of a crime drama thing where you're trying to show clues everywhere.
The classic one I was thinking now, and I agree there. Forpe is the classic one is the burglar breaking into the house. Breaking in the window, not torch, trying to find something, opening drawers. That's never done with words, is it? Or shouldn't be?
But in a sort of psychological manner, when a character's saying something, you're making judgments on what they're saying. Whereas if you're only able to judge them, you're forced to judge them by their actions. What do you mean? You're considering more about what they're thinking as opposed to what they're presenting? Because when you're saying something, that's not necessarily a reflection of how you actually feel.
Or anything.
I mean,
sometimes,
you can certainly play with the narratives of how the readers emotionally. It's the point of view, isn't it? Is the viewpoint. For instance, we see a character jump upon this cute looking animal, right? They jump upon them, they kill them. So when we first see it, we think that's awful. Later on, we get a twist of it, and we see that, as cute as that person is, they're Hitler. Do you know what I mean? Or something like that. And there's a reason for that. And it changes everything, isn't it?
Sort of reframe what's the event.
Reframing I think...
I can bring the book that I sort of can suggest.
Bring it in.
It's another one on Global Comics called Recall. And there's elements in the write-up which I said, I didn't get that at all. It says, Recall, a couple find themselves pursued by mysterious lights in the sky along a remote highway. Is their pursuit a dream or something more sinister? Inspired by the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, the first widely publicized alien abduction in the United States. I didn't get alien abduction for this, so I'm not sure if that's that. I kind of
looking at the cover. I kind of get that sort of scene. It's a lovely cover. I really like the cover.
Yeah.
I get that with the cover, but would I get that from when I'm reading the book?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
The cover's got the X-Files thing going on, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's sort of 1950s, 60s, and it's like a mixed race couple, and they're in somewhere backwater in the Americas, and they're getting shit from the locals, so they take off in their car, and this sequence plays out over and over. It's a bit like Groundhog Day in as much that they go back to the start of it, and then you see stuff from a different angle, and then their chase and flee from the diner in this car. It plays out slightly different every time.
That's a brave storytelling choice to do a Groundhog Day in the comic book.
Rashomon as well as the other version of that, where you see it from different people's points of view, which I think is really interesting aspect.
But the events play out differently to the main characters. Like there's times where they do see lights in the sky. There's time where they see like a deer in the road that smashes through their windscreen, and there's a lot left for interpretation. That's why I sort of like kind of framing it as just it's aliens. I didn't really get that. Maybe I'm reading more into it than
I think because they lead so heavily on the racism in the cafe. You know, that they kiss, and then you see the faces of all the sort of trucker rednecky guy and kind of guys staring at them. It leads you off down that path so heavily, doesn't it? That,
Do you think is this sort of like an allegory for them being chased down the road and in court and attacked, and something happens? But it's a fascinating experiment, and
there's something very David Lynchian about the way it sort of looks and feels. That may be the sort of like 1950s Cadillac sort of thing.
No, you mean the diner as well?
Yeah. It's an interesting one because I'm still looking at the art style and I'm like, how is this done? Because some of it looks like photos, some of it is hand drawn, some of it's like mixed media. I find the art style is very.
I'll give that a read. I just looked at that, man. It looks all right.
I mean, what I love about this particular sort of book is, even if we're unsure about it, there's so much to discuss with it. There's so much to say, so much sort of like, oh, does it mean this? Does it mean that? You know, and sometimes in comics that doesn't work, but it looks like it's a weird, trippy sort of style, this story. That,
Can I pose a question?
Sure.
So each of you has to choose one of your comics that has to do a silent issue. You can't choose your one, Forpe. You've got to choose another one. What do you choose? So you have to choose one of your little back catalogue of books. You think what would work best as a silent comic, and why? Most importantly, so I'll lead off to give you time to think. So mine would be Atomic Hercules, because he's a man of few words anyway, and he fights monsters and robots and stuff who don't necessarily have to have a voice. So it would be the easy option for me to do that.
And then, like with me, it would be like the Red Mask from Mars, because it's one of those. It's like completely. It's a figure of action. Like a lot of the stuff that you're seeing is what they're, the results are there on the page of what they're doing.
You'd have to have like a bash 'em up issue, wouldn't you? Like a monster versus.
And there would probably be. I mean, I had a thought about this when we were talking about like the Marvel one. When you're talking about the Exiles, or what, how would you that experiment of how would you do this? And as we're discussing that, I thought, well, I'd take a narrative where like something happens and like just a sound grenade goes off and someone's deafened, so it's literally they're just watching things happening.
But I like that. I like when it's given a reason. This is why it is. I think if you're being an imaginative writer and create, when, like, for example, when the Marvel creators were given that option, there's a reason to do it. Don't just do a comic that's silent. Like, do a comic that has a reason to be silent as well.
I was going to posit the idea of silent issues, the TV equivalent of the musical episode. I don't think that. I'm not sure if that holds true, but because it seems like a lazy thing to do, like a musical episode, whereas a silent issue, there's a bit more skill in it.
Easy for me, but you drawing monkeys, it's more difficult, isn't it?
But one of the examples of that, Dan, is Buffy had a musical episode. They also did that one of the best ones.
They did a silent episode.
Completely silent. So I don't mind the fact that Buffy did a musical episode. It's just everyone else who fucking does one winds me up now. But what about you, Forpe? Who would you do?
I would do George Mayhem. And I would do him in Afghanistan, and an IED would have blown up the truck, so he's gone deaf. So it's that classic, when you see these movies and it's like, I love it in the film when that happens, and it's all like,
if there was a sound, it would just be a whistle, so you don't want that through that.
And you do a bit. They tend to do a bit of slow mo as well with that, or smokes in the eyes and this bit of that. It's not always necessarily just the quiet. There's always something else, isn't there?
And I like the idea that he has to get from where it's blowing up back to the kind of base, and his way of fighting his way through and trying to.
But with something like that as well, you can deal with the fact that the visuals are being traumatic. For instance, if like it looks like, when you put a 3D comic and you haven't put the glasses on and everything's kind of doubled, you could really mess with the fact that the visuals are going crazy as well.
Yeah, it'd be super cool. You can imagine it, can't you? Like they've got the talking bit going at the beginning, and then all of a sudden it goes silent, and then it's because he's on his own, and then things are going off. But if you can't hear, then you can't hear someone coming up. So then I guess your sense is heightened or something. So then you have to try and show. How does he know that there's someone around the corner, or how does he deal with you see reflections?
Yeah.
Does he, you know? So there's quite a lot to play with there, really. I think probably.
I go back to the Larry David quote where I think it was one of the episodes where he was married and living with his wife, and he says to his mate, "Sometimes I pretend to be deaf. I sit in the garden and I pretend to be deaf. Not too bad."
my stepdad has hearing aids, and he actually switches them off, and they have little lights on at the back. They flash. They're quite small. And at Christmas, he was sat there, and everyone was chatting away, and I was like, "Hugh, do you want a drink? Do you want a drink?" And he was just like, "Yeah, like that." And I came over, and I was like, "Are you all right? Are you?" And he's like, "What's that?" And I was like,
very wise.
How can you do that? He was like, and he was just like, kind of, you know, finger to lips, like, that's just not.
Do you play charades? Is it like Saltburn at your Kiltree Manor?
God,
there you go.
I don't get a reference. I've not seen Saltburn, so
I think it's a bit of a sex movie. I've not seen it either, to be fair, but I think they all get naked at one point. It's coupled up with the fact that me and Falpy wind up for being posh.
Dan, what comic would you do?
I don't know. I did have like a kind of a small prequel, like Vanguard comic, of where the two of the characters, you find out where the enmity between them springs up. I'd be interested to try and do that silent.
So doing it in flashback makes sense in a way as well, doesn't it? A silent flashback.
Yeah.
So essentially, there's two characters. They're kind of military buddies. They're on some mission. One gets fucked over. The other one leaves them behind. And as the other one's kind of missing in action or whatever, he consoles the girlfriend, and they kind of come a relationship. The other one comes back, and it's where they was best mates. Now they fucking hate each other.
So I mean, there's an element that it's in your DNA, Dan. I can sense some G.I. Joe in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's got to be some G.I. Joe in there, isn't it? If you're doing a war story.
The classic, but also they had the classic issue, didn't they?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, the classic silent issue, and I think the kind of the urban myth around that, I'm not sure if it's true or not, is because they ran out of time and they didn't do the lettering.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm not sure if that's true or not. I couldn't attest to it, but that whole issue kind of, I think that started off the silent issue run in like Marvel and the big boys.
Yeah, they were inspired. The Nuff Said project was inspired by the G.I. Joe issue. Yeah, very much so.
I've got it up here. It's G.I. Joe. They recently done issue 21, G.I. Joe issue 21, and they recently did a 30th anniversary one where I've got that knocking around somewhere, but a different artist tackled a page. Yeah. So each artist did a page of it, and they retold it, and it's essentially one of the characters gets caught, Scarlet, and Snake Eyes the ninja has to go into Cobra HQ and does like a one-man rescue, and it's great. It's really good.
One of the beautiful things about it is it's lightning in a bottle, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean, it can't be.
You do that once, but like you can't do that again because it's a kind of a one-trick pony, and it's great. Yeah. But silent issue 2 is that.
Yeah. Here's a question. When does a silent storytelling issue become just an excuse for a creative wank?
I think hallucinations and dreams can be.
There's one for me. There's one that I've mentioned, and I think you know what I'm talking about. As beautiful as the pages are, there's an issue of Shaolin Cowboy.
Right, you don't like that, do you?
It's just a double page. He's just fighting zombies like for the whole thing, and I was like, that's nice, but that's a waste of 3 or 4.
I mean, if it wasn't anyone other than if it was other artists, I would have more of the hump.
Don't get me wrong.
But
art-wise,
incredible art,
incredible art. But still, for me, that was one of those. Nah, I still can't.
Yeah,
just
there's in a similar way. There's in that Nuff Said project. There's New X-Men 121, which is the Frank Quitely, Grant Morrison period as well, and they have to go into Professor X's head as usual to see what's going on, and they find out he's got a twin sister, but they bottle it. They have a line on the last page. Someone says something.
Okay,
and I thought that's cheating.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks beautiful. It's Frank Quitely artwork, so it looks beautiful, but it's like, you know.
Do you think would it work without the line put in there? If they removed that line, would it work?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like now we've got to get to work, or it's one of those sort of stupid throwaway lines. I can't remember exactly what it is.
Maybe the writer had a wobble at the end.
Yeah.
in that Step by Bloody Step comic that I was talking about just a minute ago, there are a couple of speech bubbles in it, like throughout, but they've just got symbols in them. But it became so much that I just didn't pay attention to them. Does that make sense? So, you know, maybe for some people, maybe they needed to be there, but for me, I was already in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're not there as well. There's an inconsistency to it as well. For instance, if someone's screaming or shouting to someone, there's nothing there.
Yeah. There's a book I've got called, it's from Nobrow, called The Adventures of a Japanese Businessman, which is massive. It's like, gosh, like A3 maybe in size.
Okay.
Bloody hell.
Huge. And it is incredible. It's by Jose Domingus, his name is. I mean, if you guys see it, you'd be like, yeah.
It does look very manga-esque in a way, doesn't it?
It's manga-esque, but the artwork in it is basically right up my street. It's proper, like, cartoony, Spanish style sort of artwork. It's fucking cool. But going back to Vince's point, is like a creative wank. Like, he's going through all these amazing scenes, like incredible different worlds, and he's just trying to get home. And it just gets more and more fantastical. And there is a story there, but there isn't a story there in the
enough
same vein.
of a story, right?
Yeah, it kind of holds together, but really you're like, A is an amazing artist, but B, he's just getting to, every time you turn the page or a couple of pages, he's just in an even more bananas world. And he's just having so much fun on the page. You can tell.
So you're saying what Vince said is there's a self-indulgence evident on
massively,
the page over what we're normally used to taking.
Yeah, it's huge book, loads of colour, loads of art, loads of, I mean, filled to the absolute stacks of characters and creatures and stuff. It's the sort of thing I remember when I saw it. It's quite old, I think. I think it's I can't remember when it came out now. It's got to be like 2015 or
it's quite an old book.
The one I'm thinking of, like off the back of this. And it's weird. I didn't think of it as being like a creative indulgence. But The Arrival, you know, Sean Tan's The Arrival. Have you read that one?
Yeah.
That's like
I've seen that one.
There's a lot of text in that, though, isn't there, as well? Isn't it got text pages?
I think is it throughout the book? It's not. It's certainly not on the actual pages, is it?
Yeah.
I think.
I didn't find it very sequential, that one.
No.
Panel. It's not panel to panel, is it? That one for me.
No.
Enough. Yeah.
But certainly there is a lot of dreamlike qualities to it. I mean, I haven't read it in years. It's come out. So
I just looked at that Step by Bloody Step, man. It's fucking cracking.
Yeah, bro.
Really good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? So, I mean, Tony, you could have read the whole thing because it's got no words. So
I know, yeah. I'm just writing it down to remember to read it tomorrow. Yeah. But you got a lot of the masters have done. I mean, is it Arzak's Wordless, isn't it? By Moebius. There's a lot of really good stuff. I mean, to me, I don't think you get better wordless comics than Woodring. You know, his frank character. It's just, I just find it. I can look down and read that and not look up for an hour.
Yeah,
but
there's also a narrative, and each character, you actually understand their kind of sensibility, like who they are, don't you? It's kind of,
you sort of worry about them. You think what's happening to them. They're weird. There's such a strange thing going on. That
pig guy is always like, he's kind of grotesque and everything, but then equally he's kind of shameful, isn't he? And he gets embarrassed about things, and it's like, but it's black and white. It's not even like, he hasn't got colour in he's got a couple that have got
because colour can be a crutch is the wrong word, but it's a shorthand.
Yeah, if mine was black and white, it'd be nails.
Well, you look at a lot of the early Disney cartoons. You know, they're in black and white and silent. You know, a lot of early cartoons were, weren't they?
Yeah.
And it works just as well. And I think that's why Woodring's Frank stuff works.
Yeah,
it's just it. I look at it, I think, is he meant to be a fucking cat? I'm not obsessed about details on it.
Yeah. The little toaster guy gets me. I don't where's he come from?
And apparently this is how Woodring sees things.
Yeah,
you know, he looks out the window and he sees this shit. Fuck me, man.
He has doesn't he have like those paralytic dreams or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, something
paralyzed in bed, and he sees figures go around him and something, but he can't move. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure he has like,
what do they call that? That's a certain thing, isn't it?
Sleep paralysis or something like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he has. No, I swear we saw a figure. There's a figure that comes in and he's paralyzed and he can't move, and it's there, and it's like quite intense, and he's kind of frozen and he can't move. I remember reading something about like around that because I got so kind of engrossed by it all. Because I remember, was it when you had John McNaught on? Like, God, no, when that, how long ago was that? Like, probably like episode 200 round.
I don't think we've had John on, have we?
Yeah, you've had McNaught on, surely.
I couldn't tell you, man. I'm terrible.
I don't think we've had him yet.
No.
Where did I hear him? Because I heard him talking, and he was like harping on about Woodring and being like, he's his inspiration.
I've read that he really liked him. Yeah,
and that he's like his inspiration and all this sort of stuff. And when you look at his books, you kind of get like, because he paces things so well, doesn't he? He does like, you know, a seagull flying in the air, look out of the car, see a motorway sign, go further down, there's like a view of the beach, see like a row of static caravan. Like, he paints little snippets of, I guess it's what I was saying earlier on about you're kind of leaving clues everywhere for people to understand stuff. Same as like in my book that I've done, it's like you have to keep dropping little things in close view to kind of spell out something, to be like they've been killed or like they're asleep.
When I write like no speaking sections of comics, I become a bit control freaky, and Cannon will tell you, because he winds me up about it all the time. But when I write something, I know exactly the beats, and I think that's really important. The flow is really important for it to, like you say, give out those clues, give situation, give view, all this sort of thing. And he messaged me once. He says, "Oh, I'm going to add this and this and this." I said, "No, we don't." I'm only winding you up.
Brings to mind like the storytelling aspect of it. You know, a lot of people who aren't in the medium and stuff, they may look at these things and go, "Well, it's a wordless comic, so all you've got to do is draw it," you know. But they don't get it. But a script for a silent book, whether you're writing it yourself or you're writing it for someone else, surely that's got to be maybe one of the most descriptive scripts that you'll get. Do you think?
It's got to be really thought out, I think.
It's interesting because I know, so when I've done, I don't know how many books I've done, maybe I've done like 15, 16 comics, I can't, something around that number. And when I did Drusa, I showed this, there's this woman I'm kind of been liaising with to try and sort of portfolio things out and things like that. And we're going through my work, and she's like, "This is good, that's good," and so on. And I was like, "I did comics, so I'm not really interested in that sort of stuff for what we're trying to position you to work on." I was like, "Okay, fine." And she's like, "But you haven't done any of this sort of stuff." And she was talking about like scenes and acting and storyboards. And I was like, "Well, I have done a silent book." And she's like, "What?" And I was like, "Well, I've done a silent comic." And she was like, "Really? No words?" I was like, "No words." And she was like, "Can you bring that up?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I brought it up, and she went through it. And then she's like, "Could you just quickly, just right now, can you just bung it into a movie or something like that, and then just press play just so I can see it, like flip through the pages, like give me a couple of seconds." And it's like, "Yeah, sure." Showed it, and she's like, "Right, okay, we need to see that in video form." She said, "That is absolutely perfect because it is showing your ability to communicate things really well without having to use words." So she was like, "If we ever want to do storyboarding or this, that, and the other, or advertising or something, it's showing character acting, and also the people that want to use the work will be able to put on their dialogue and see how they would potentially word what you've done." So it became a second tool of, like people see, like Pussy Man Fists and all those sort of things. They think they read the words and it's hilarious. And I like that. I love like writing those sort of things. But actually, like when it's silent, kind of like what you guys are saying, people are putting their own dialogue and stuff into it, and therefore they kind of take weird ownership of it. So, well, I thought it was this, and I think this, and it was like, it's been a really big plus. It's hard. It was hard to do, but equally, when I finished it, I was thinking, man, I can do so much more now. Like the way my brain was thinking, and the amount of times I'd get to a page and be like, I need to get to there in this many pages. And
did you find you needed to plot it like almost like tighter? Where if you say, now it's midnight in Brooklyn, you can write that, but that it almost has to be a sequence to do a silent comic. Do you feel like that, or?
Well, yeah, so I've had to do like day and night. She had to wake up and go to sleep a couple of times because I was like, this can't happen in a fucking day.
Yeah.
Like, I can't say a week later or a year later, or I'm like, if, for example, the next section, they've got to get to wherever they've got to get to. If I decide that's going to take 2 months, how the fuck am I going to show that? Apart from, I have to use weather, right? It needs to be like sun, snow, leaves fall, right. And how many times do I show that equates to how many years? And I guess, again, it goes back to that, putting those clues in. It's putting those little bits in where you're like, that must mean that. Otherwise, so they've been that amount of time, or they're a bit bedraggled, or their hair's got longer,
and maybe they look pristine to begin with. A couple of pages in, their clothes are torn, and you can tell that.
Whereas, like, usually, like when we do comics, you don't have to even think about that because you're like, you know, you do the little kind of intro bit of copy that's, you know, like on the other side of town.
I mean, it's the old joke, isn't it? Meanwhile, you know, Gotham Bleach HQ or something like that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I'm sure you guys have seen this. Like, a lot of comics at the moment that I've been picking up, the amount of fucking times there's no backgrounds. It's just people talking, or maybe there's a full bodies and it's really nice, but it's just like block color. And it's like they'll have one establishing shot. They use like maybe the top half is red, and then they'll block fill the backgrounds with red to let you know that they're still in that scene. They're not drawing any of the fucking scenes. And you're like, you couldn't do that. Because you'd be like, oh, what the fuck is going on here? Like, you need all of that detail to understand, to see the clues and kind of be led along.
There are certain points of sort of comic creation that you really need to level up when doing a silent one. For instance, you know, we talk a lot about like house styles or whatever. How many times have we read a comic book where everyone kind of looks the same, even if they're different characters? And if it's a silent book, you're in a whole world of hurt if you're doing that. Because people have to see the differences. You know, there's all these shortcuts that you can't.
People like to know the names of characters and stuff like that. And if it's a silent, how do you do it? How do you communicate that? Because it's normally like, "Hey, Peter," you know, it's like that, isn't it? You know, so you figure out who's who.
Yeah, I cheated in mine because I inscribed Drusa on her sword. So there's a scene near the beginning where she kind of gets her sword and does this move, and then there's a panel after it. You see like her name up the side of the blade.
That's just
and then
clever. That
works.
And then when you meet the next guy, I can't remember where his name is somewhere. I can't remember where I put it, but I basically put it somewhere, so it's like, oh, that's his name. It's not.
I think creators don't need to feel like they have to take away things like that. I mean, for instance, if you're doing a post-apocalyptic zombie comic about Las Vegas, if you got signs that have no words on them, where the fuck are you? Do you know what I mean? You've got you've got to see. Yeah, you've got to see like no exit, or you know those sort of signs. But it's I mean, I love them. I think, you know, I don't know if I mean, could we read them all the time? I don't think I
wouldn't want to. I think they're a nice little
that's the power of them, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Well, do you think it's a useful thing that perhaps the big companies should be considering sticking an issue here and there, maybe once every couple of years in, you know?
I don't. For me, and this is just the cynicism and pessimism, a bigger company's doing it feels more like a cash grab, sort of like, oh, look at the novelty. I don't want it to be a novelty. I want it to be a specialty. I want it to be a special thing.
I think a lot of these visual tricks, if you want to call them that, I feel like a novelty, and I felt that. I know there was a lot of love for the Nightwing POV issue, you know, where you see everything through his eyes. I just found it a bit like, okay, yeah, all right.
You're kind of done with it very
it's
quickly.
Just a trick, very interesting, move on, you know.
I think it depends. I was gonna say, I think it depends if it's like you say, it's a gimmick for an issue. Like if you're seeing something from someone's point of view the whole time, if it's got an actual narrative purpose and that you need to be in that position to understand the story, great, perfect. If you're doing it just as a bit of a, wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah.
And you're kind of just exploring it a bit. It's kind of like,
I mean, the first person perspective is something that I think always seems like a better idea than it is. I mean, people play video games, you know, the Call of Duties, etc., where everything is first person. We are the person holding the gun. And you think in your head, well, if they do a whole film like that, that'd be amazing. And then like you see a film like that and you're like, don't really want this. I feel a bit sick.
Yeah. I find it works better. I find it works better in words monologue than I do in. So I like that sort of hard-boiled detective narration sort of thing. But I think if you just see everything, like, oh look, there's me loading the gun. You know, it's like boring.
Yeah. I love it when you used to get the detective narration.
Yeah.
Like you say, I used to. Do you know it's funny? It's like that Leslie Nielsen was always classic for that, wasn't it? Naked Gun and stuff. We'd always have those fucking ridiculous.
So like a blind man did, like a blind man at an orgy. I was gonna have to film away for it.
But do you know what I mean? You have those like monologues, and you'd be like, it just was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the reasons I like Shang-Chi so much, because every comic is him. It's not now; it's fucking bollocks now. But it's him like talking about the conflict he's got about fighting, and you hear what he's thinking all the time. It's great, and it's one of the reasons I love the Dune books again, because you get that combination
all
of the
the
characters'
time.
thoughts.
Yeah.
So when you say Dune books, are you talking about actual novel books with no pictures in it, just words?
Yes. Yeah, I know it's a bit weird for us to be talking about that. Yeah, look at us brainy fuckers.
I keep looking, because you fucking do this all the time. On this pod, you say things. I'm like, oh right, there's these Dune comics. Where are they? There's not really. That doesn't sound like anything these guys are talking about.
There are Dune comics now.
There are Dune comics.
For a while, there was just one comic sort of thing, but we talk about the novels mostly. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. That's...
Pleasure.
Couple of nerds.
Do read the books. They're great.
Hello.
Yeah.
I read the book.
It's a Sunday evening to that comics on a podcast.
Yeah.
In the movie.
I've watched the movies, as everyone probably has, and I went across over the way. There's a guy over there who's read all the books, and in his house, he's got like all the Lord of the Ring books, all the Dune books and stuff. And I went and I started talking.
He doesn't live near a school, does he?
Fortunately, so I've got to keep an eye on him. So I walked in and I saw the Dune books, and I just literally watched the new movie, which I thought was pretty decent. And I started talking a bit about it, and he just,
look, don't.
What did I do?
What did you do? No,
one of us.
I think it was at a thought bubble, wasn't it, gents, where we were at the Weatherspoons. We sat down, and I could quite easily enjoy my meal and not say a word because these guys were talking about June.
Fucking June.
And they were more than happy.
Yeah.
We've talked about it literally for hours at a time.
And we could talk about this subject for literally hours at a time. But I think on the whole, it's such an important storytelling device, isn't it? This being able to do this. But if you're planning to do it as a creator, and Forpe, just as a creator, what advice would you have for someone who wants to try their hand at something like this?
100% do it, because it's an amazing way to upskill. It will help you do facial acting. It will help you pace your pages better. It will help you work out if you want to work in a 9-panel grid, or even going down to how big your panels need to be to invoke relevance of an item or an action. So it really helps you to stop and think. So I think it's really like a major plus on that side. I think Tony said, right near the beginning, you need a reason. So be it that they are potentially deaf, or in my case have got a helmet on, we don't really know what's going on under there. Woodring doesn't really have a reason, it just is silent, isn't it? But I guess if you've got a reason, the character, it kind of helps you out, because for me, it's easier to hang a narrative off of it, because you're thinking they can't hear that, they can't do that. So what would it be like for them? Whereas if you're just going in and it is just silent for...
Do you think you have to be careful with that, though? Careful with the reason to not become a novelty? Do you know what I mean? If the reason isn't strong enough.
Yeah, maybe. It's a real tough one. It's a real tough story to kind of work out. And like I said at the beginning, because you guys kind of spoke about it so much, it just made me think it isn't a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I've had loads of people...
If you've got some slapstick in it, I think it works. Like Spy versus Spy or something as well.
Yeah.
I think that works as well.
Yeah.
Might be a good idea to do a 4-page script just to test yourself to see if you can do a silent comic.
I mean, think about fucking Tom and Jerry, Jesus.
Yeah.
That was there's no talking in that at all.
It was just the maid, wasn't it? Just talking.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chasing around with a broom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, old black and white silent movies, like, Chaplin, Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton stuff.
There was
like
an amazing one, wasn't there, not so long ago that came out that was silent.
The Plank.
Do you remember? Was that what it was?
No,
that
was
about
recently. Yeah.
That was about 30 years ago.
Tommy Cooper in it.
Yeah.
What was a fuck? Wasn't it like the silent movie? Do you not remember that? It's black and white.
Oh, it was a Mel Brooks movie.
Yeah, it came out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was not that long ago, and that was incredible. And it went right through, and it turned out.
Oh, wasn't it?
Was it the actor?
The actor.
The actor. That's it, yeah. And then it gets to the end, and it's the whole thing that he's got a crap voice or something, so like they can't use him in like spoken
You can't
film.
move to the
Yeah. It's
He's
very
a star
clever.
in the quiet ones, silent films.
Yeah.
But when it goes to, he can't do it.
No. So I think but I definitely recommend people have a crack at it for sure, even if it's in an anthology. I mean, that'd be quite fun, wouldn't it? Like a silent anthology.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah.
That'd be
Because we got we're trying to do like the horror anthology coming up this year, and I was thinking a silent horror anthology. That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
like a Nosferatu, like an old kind of vampire Nosferatu.
Yeah.
kind of
yeah,
stuff would be awesome.
yeah.
Mm.
I mean, certainly. I mean, there's been many horror films that are based around senses, haven't they? So the whole. Be interesting to see that in a.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, certainly.
Haven't done one on Taste yet, have they?
No. But,
Taste.
Yeah. Maybe.
I remember reading an old Fumetti years ago. I'm desperate to find this comic. If anyone knows where it is, where there's like they get infected with something in the woods and they start growing like bark and leaves on them, and then they run to a phone box and the girl tries to ring an ambulance, and there's a voice on the other end, and she opens her mouth and just all this like leaves and bark comes out and stuff. And I'm like, oh my god, yeah. I remember seeing that when I was a kid. God, it's horrible.
Oh.
Things were frightening back in the day, weren't they? Like,
Not now. Bloody snowflakes.
But
Pornography's scary.
obviously,
There's not much talking in them.
It's true. Yeah, I like a little bit of talking though. I don't like it when they don't talk. I like conversation. I like the romance at the start of them.
I like how
I've
things
never
just
watched
go
the
along
end
with
of a
this.
porno. I'll be honest with you.
A bit
so I
of
don't know what
character
happens.
development. You've got to be really invested, haven't you?
Yeah. I've never seen how they end though. Do they get married in the end or something? I don't know. Never gone to that far.
I don't know. It's a bit.
And have kids, unfortunately.
That's nice.
Wow. What, it becomes like Kramer versus Kramer by the end, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the way I've seen some
All I
of
did
those
was
videos,
I just delivered the pizza. Now we got married and got kids.
I say this, where some of those videos finish. There's no kids being made out of that union.
And we're back in the
And we're
ring.
done.
Yeah.
That's that bit done.
Obviously, keep the conversation going, because I know our lovely listeners will have lots of recommendations and good examples of this sort of storytelling. So if you're on the Slack community, obviously keep the conversation going in the chat or on the Twitter, on social media, or wherever. Or if you listen to this now and you suddenly remember one of these great wordless comics, recommend it to someone.
There's bundles.
Yeah,
there's loads.
Yeah. Before we jump on to the next portion, I have a bit of a creative question to ask everyone before we get onto the shoutouts and everything.
Go on.
This is about like a concept, and it's a conceptual dilemma to pose to you. You have created a story, a character. You have developed it. You've made notes. You've just done it all off your own back. You've gotten it to a certain point where you're ready to properly, fully develop it. And then someone mentions something, or you see something, and you realise that whatever's out in the world is eerily similar, not the same, but is similar to what you've thought of off your own back without any influence whatsoever. What do you do with that idea? Do you kill it, or do you continue with it?
I've had something similar, and I think we're the victims of a thin line of fucking information into our brains these days, aren't we? When we have the internet, we think, oh, the world's open to us now. We can look at anything, but seemingly we all seem to see the same things. We all seem to talk about the same things.
Yeah.
So I think unconsciously sometimes there's that way that's reason you get a couple of movies about this or a couple of novels or TV series about comics like this. I think that goes on. And I've had it where I thought, oh yeah, and I thought, oh, there's something like that. So I just haven't done it, to be fair.
Yeah.
I didn't want to look like I was following the bandwagon.
Because that's the difficult thing, isn't it? Because you could continue it, and the last thing you want to hear is when it comes out, it's like, well, that's just the same as that. Even if it's not. That you could have you could have made it in a room without any windows. Do you know what I mean? Without any books, without any internet. You've just created this.
Yeah. But that story going through the filter of you, for instance, Vince, you might bring something unique to that might not have been said before.
And the quality that you would do would be higher than some other people, for example. There's that as well.
Just to clear this up, I don't have anything particular right now, but it's happened to me before, and that's always thought about. I've just thought.
I can't imagine any creator hasn't come up with an idea that they think, oh, fucking hell.
Everything's out there, though. That's the thing. There's no new ideas, is that theory. I don't believe that, but that's what people say, isn't it?
I feel like there's so much kind of things we kind of consume through osmosis, just where we don't even realise it half the time. And like I remember I think it was 2 years ago, I was working on a book about the origin story of Santa Claus, and it was so good. I was like, this is it. This is my fucking piece de resistance. I'll fucking retire after this one. And I got two-thirds of the way through, and then there must have been 3 kind of violent Santa Claus films come out.
You had Clowns as well, didn't you, by Grant Morrison.
And I was just like, fucking bin it. Like, even though there's violent bits in it, and it wasn't all violent, and it wasn't the same story, I was like, it's now become saturated. And I'm just like, I don't want someone to be like, oh, he's watched that.
You copied that, yeah. I had a fucking idea about a desert planet where they were growing like this. No, it's the same thing when someone fucking comes out with a stupid idea about, oh, Batman, why doesn't he give all his money to the poor? And it's like they're the first time they've had that fucking idea. And it's
mate.
Yeah.
Question, the thing is, just quickly, which came first? The big worm from June or Tremors?
The big worm
off, June. June's the 60s, man.
Yeah.
You're lucky they didn't bite your fucking head off.
You don't wind us.
That's fair play.
We invited you on.
Yeah.
It did Vince make you say that?
Yeah.
No, but it's that sort of stuff. Like, you see that. I remember when I watched the new film and it kind of came up, and I was like, I'd seen it in the 80s, and I'd seen it in the 80s when I was like, when was Tremors?
You
like
kids
90s?
these days.
Yeah.
Kids these days.
Yeah.
Who did the worm? And then I thought, there's loads of this like worm going. It's not new or anything, but people still riff on it, don't they?
There's loads of stuff from sci-fi that's been nicked from June.
Yeah.
Repurposed. I mean, virtually all of Warhammer 40k is.
Yeah.
I mean, as well, ISIS nicked the word jihad.
Yeah.
In June. That's where I think they got it from.
That's not true.
Bit naughty that.
That's not true.
Yeah,
I think it might be in the Quran.
I
believe it might be in the
I
Quran.
did read one of the reviews of June 2, and it's like, ends up Paul Atreides not that great because he wants to do like this interstellar jihad, and I was like, that's the story.
That's how I know what jihad means.
Yeah.
From June.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Fucking hell.
That's the story.
But there is a difference there.
Don't ruin it, Dan.
No.
I've only watched the first
Oh,
one.
is this a metaphor with the withdrawal from Afghanistan? Yeah. No, it's from the fucking 60s.
They had it first.
There is a difference. Just to get off this potentially problematic subject, but there is a difference to like creating something that is very clearly influenced by certain things and wearing that on your sleeve, and that's like that's totally an Atomic Robo, for instance, doesn't exist without Hellboy, and they like do you know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff, but it becomes more difficult, doesn't it, if you've created.
I think we can tell. We can tell, we can tell. We're cynical old fuckers, aren't we? I think we can tell when something's like a cash grab because something's popular compared to something that is just another idea on the same sort of, came out about the same time.
But but to counterpoint that, what about other people?
Other people, I'm sure, can't it? Joe Public can't see.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Look at the something like rock and roll comics. Just like massively just cashing. Oh, Britney Spears has got #1. Let's do a comic in a week. Put it out.
Yeah.
Again, like as a creator, I think you got to move past. People will make lazy comparisons about your book and what your content's going to be about, and don't take it too personally because and someone does a visual shorthand, you say, well, I've got a character about like a superhero that flies. Oh, well, like Superman.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
Although
okay.
there is, I remember years ago we used to laugh at the fucking. Oh, this is like Buffy meets the Sweeney, and then it's fucking like neither.
No.
You know, but that's sort of short, lazy comparison thing. I think sometimes as well is another thing. Yeah,
I've been kind of drip feeding my son kind of comic stuff.
Excellent.
He's like 4.5 now, and
good.
Yesterday we were watching. I think it was it Lego Batman? Not the film, but like the kind of TV series, whatever it is. And Superman comes in and he's getting shot by the Joker, I think it was. And he's like, oh, how come Superman's not getting hurt? And I was like, oh, because he's impervious to bullets. And then he like shoots him laser eyes and he's like, oh, you can do that. And then he flies off and does that. And he's like, Dad. It's like, yeah. But what can't Superman do? I was like, no, nothing. He can do everything. Well, what's the point in that? I was like,
Can't have sex with a lady, can he?
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to go into that with a 4-year-old, am I?
Can't see through lead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can't say that. He's
But
much
wow.
against magic.
he's got a good point, though, isn't it? Because really, and you guys know more about this than I do, he's one of the characters where you're like, not really much. Not many characters where they're literally impervious to pretty much absolutely
They
everything.
had to create things, didn't they? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it was
Yeah.
like the radio.
That's what kryptonite.
the
I mean,
radio-
Kryptonite comes from the radio series or the TV series. I can't remember
Yeah.
which now. Yeah, it didn't originally come from the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it's kind of like, it sounds great when you go, nothing can beat him. And then you're like, that's quite a hard story no one can ever beat him. It's not really enigmatic writing, is it? Like,
Well, that's why they depowered him, post-crisis, didn't they?
It always creeps up.
Warburton did that with him.
Always.
Yeah.
1 minute he can barely fly 100 miles an hour. Next minute he's like pushing the earth off his axis. And it's like,
And every so often they want him to be the bad guy and everyone else has got to beat him, so therefore he has to be invulnerable to everything again. Cause then
I'm ready
was
for that
one-
to move on.
yeah.
I can't remember which film it was, but it's one where he like lifts the fucking like planet up that's got kryptonite all in it. And he's like, is it the boat or something?
Superman Returns.
And it's
He's
just
got that
like,
island.
all right, now he can fucking lift an island full of kryptonite, but a minute ago he couldn't have a rock around his fucking neck.
Yeah.
Like,
I bet it's in that
big
movie
system.
once. I saw the
makes
pictures
it,
and then I
I
watched it
get
again.
so angry about these things. I want to go and find the person, just fucking punch him.
You sound like a comic fan.
It is Brian Singer, so you'd be well justified in doing that.
Yeah, but he's a piece.
Is he not like? I liked his X-Men movies. Were they not any good? I quite like them.
I like
Yeah, it's very good.
Usual Suspects, but he's
Oh,
been
yeah.
he's a bit shady, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah.
I like shady
He-
people though.
Allegedly.
No.
Do we need to go on X now?
Oh
We'll
no.
hop on
Okay.
X and have a quick
Right.
attack.
He's a fucking wrong 'un. But do you know what's right about this show? It's the shout outs.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So I go first.
Slick AF.
So I'll go first. I've only got one. Clear Run 2 drops on Kickstarter next week. The first issue following the adventures of a rescue greyhound is a massive fan of ours, I'm guessing, and also the boys in the Slack were saying about it. Created by one of my favourite people in the world, Helena Edmundson at ArtNineTwo. You can find a landing page now. They've got that whole go and register to fund it when it breaks. Have a look on X or on the Slack, and you'll see the link in there.
Nice.
That's my only one this week.
I had a call with Damien today, and I said to him, "Why didn't you call it Clear 2 Run?" And he said, "It's a great idea, Dan, but it's already gone to press. Why didn't you say that?"
The print.
a week?
thank you, you prick.
He's
I said,
had
"Well, you
that
want
a
to
lot.
tell, you know?"
That's the worst, isn't it? That's the worst when someone says that. After I was
It's gone
printed
to press.
on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And you notice that spelling mistake? I printed it, mate. I don't care.
Yeah,
Fuck off.
I remember that with Vanguard Book 3. I sent it to the printer and I sent a couple of press copies out. And Gary Watson said, "Was there a reason why you put that page in twice?"
Oh,
Oh, the
double
face he's pulling is a face I know all too
I
well.
was like, "Fuck!"
But to cheer you up, have you got any shout outs, Dan?
You know I have.
oh,
Lawless,
no.
2024.
yes.
Double Tree Way
VIP's
and
tickets are
Hotel.
sold out, aren't they?
What?
VIP tickets are sold out.
Oh,
Someone
wow,
announced it
okay.
today.
Oh, there you go.
All
I'll
five
continue to
have
talk
gone?
about it. We've got a Pleasant Life comic series. There's comic about geeks and relationships. It's got 7 days to go. It's smashed through its target, so you can go check
This
them
must
out.
be a short comic. Hey!
Clockwork Werewolves issue 1, gothic steampunk horror, classic horror meets steampunk style. The paranormal investigator faces the clockwork werewolves, and that's from our friends at Hellbound Media. So you're going to get that comic. It looks fucking ace. Oh man, some of the artwork is brilliant. So go check that one out. That's on Kickstarter. We've got Fully Loaded by Jimmy Broxton. There Goes the Future. Blade Runner meets Sin City in a neo-noir cyberpunk crime thriller. Art to die for, a steal to kill for, and a shattering finale you wouldn't see coming in 100 years. That's got 2 weeks left, and it's smashed for its goal once again. And we've got John Sterling, Super Spy, Windbreaker. I've been talking about this for a couple of episodes. A4 32-page, full-color, all ages comic featuring John Sterling, a secret agent of Snoop.
Next one, if you don't mind. Tara Togs, The Silence of Unicorns. It comes from the Comic Scene crew. A 68-page mystery adventure graphic novel set in Scotland, but it's inspired by Tintin. And if you have a look at the visuals on the Kickstarter page, it's got a real sort of clean line style to it.
That look great.
It's got 45 days to go. Oh, they're doing a long one on that one, but it's already doubled its number. So going back because it's definitely happening now, I would say. There you go.
Oh, brilliant. That's one.
Nice. Forp, do you have any shout-outs? Anything you'd like to say to the people?
I do. Well, I've got to show my shout out and then say something to the people, or which?
You can leave that to the end if you want.
Either, both, whatever you like.
Underground Kingdom Comics presents
this
Romance. So that's a little group that I'm kind of involved with. Adam Falp has got a story in this, which should be, Falp doing romance.
He does love romance.
I'm very excited. I sent him a message when I heard that he was in this one, and I was just like, mate, I cannot fucking wait to read what you've done. Vincent Bell Robertson, a Scottish illustrator, has done the cover, which is pretty sexy. And then you've got a story by Kai Reynolds, Little Blakely, obviously Falpinator, Anna Reedman, the talent that is.
Oh, yeah.
I own some OA as an investment from Anna Reedman.
Oh, mate.
Yeah, nice.
Her stuff is killer, isn't it? Yeah,
it's a point, actually.
Absolute legend. And then Matt Greaves, he's done a piece in it as well. So,
cool.
Nice. I think
Matt was in our anthology, wasn't he? Forpe,
that's right. Yeah. He's one of the boys. £3 for the PDF, £5 for the printed version. I know. So when I was in the last one that went out, and we basically did two at the same time, and we all decided that that's a little bit much, and people were getting confused between is it a variant or is it actually two books? So they just launched with one this time, but it's got 11 days to go. It's nearly made its
needs a little push, doesn't it? I think
needs a little bit of love for the romance, but I think they're trying to. I think it finishes on. It launched on Valentine's Day. I know that much, so it should be. What was that like? Maybe a week to go.
It's a busy day for us, mate. Probably that's why we didn't see it the first day.
Yeah, I was too busy. Doing the do. What have I got to say to the people? Just be nice.
Yeah.
Just share some love around there. Start sharing things, like things, comment on things. I've had Cliff has shared a lot of my work lately. You guys have done a lot of that on Instagram, and it really.
So if you're a member of the Slack or part of the, the people we know, then I'll always, if I see it, I'll try and share it on Instagram.
Yeah, but I think the algorithm is an absolute fucking nutbuster. Absolute nutbuster right now, and it's fucking so many people over in terms of like small artists because there's this whole pay to play thing now, and I think if we can all kind of help each other kind of boost signal noise and stuff, that can only help. Because I think in the past we were doing all these shows and stuff together, and that's kind of drying up a little bit now, and I think we could really do with all kind of coming together and doing stuff rather than being little cliques everywhere. I agree. But that'd be my statement to the people, Vince.
Wow.
Can I do one last quick shout out?
Oh yeah.
Oh, fuck's sake, Dan.
Sorry.
I'll tell you what.
That was a big finish.
I've completely forgotten what you just said, Falp, because he's completely done you over there.
We talk about June again, Dan.
No more June references. You can.
What do you want to say, Dan? What would you like to say?
We're doing the March of the Mutants on the Slack, the draw off.
Yeah.
Where we're doing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle drawings for the month. So if you want to get involved, there's a drawing list. Use that and go for it.
That has been very good. I've enjoyed those.
Yeah.
Tony's
they've got some fucking great stuff.
I got one nation under a tradies. I've got the Inkblot Festival was a brilliant success from what I hear from a couple of weeks ago. Dan Charlie went and gave me a little rundown of it. The boys there, and the boys have just announced that they're doing one in Nottingham now. They're waiting to announce the date, but Inkblot Festival, which I think was only £3 entry, it was a good little festival. Everyone really enjoyed it, and they're moving it on to one in Nottingham. So watch this space.
Nice. Nice.
Perfect.
So many shout outs then. It's time to recommend some books to send you off into your week with stuff to read. Now, as always, the guest goes first. So after that powerful statement and those
Which I shat on.
really emotive words that the co-hosts shat all over, would you like to
demagogue?
Would you like to recommend something to our lovely listeners, Falp?
Yes, I would. Weirdly, originally there was going to be like the classic Monica and all that shit, but everyone's said so much about it now that it's almost like, because I think we've all been reading these, like just before Christmas, it felt like all these amazing books were coming out, these huge big fucking tomes from these masters, and everyone was all over it. So that's what I've really been reading. But I have read Werewolf Jones and Sons Deluxe Summer Fun Annual, which, as I said to you guys, I really wish that he had said Fun Anal, because I feel like that would be
because
more
it can be fun.
It can be, and I feel like that's more of a Hanselman kind of.
Yeah.
I think he would get away with that. But I mean, it's as always beautifully made. And here's a funny little thing. So before I got it, I was watching his manga chat, which ironically never really talks about manga at all. But it's a fucking mega YouTube program if you're into indie comics, especially from America, because they just like go into it all and they give loads of kind of shout outs here and there. But so when they did this book, they wanted to use the old Fantagraphics logos. So they've got one there because they wanted to keep it really old school and they like that. But Fantagraphics was like, we just had this new logo done. So just to fuck them, they did this to the inside of the book.
A massive logo on the cover.
Basically, if you take the dust jacket off, it's a white book with an entire Fantagraphics logo on the front. That is it. We're
going to do that in tribute going forward.
We should. But what is it? I mean, it's a classic annual in terms of it's got puzzles, games, various kind of little short stories. And it's done by Simon Hanselman, known for Meg Moganow and obviously Werewolf Jones. And then also it's got some stories in here from Josh Pettinger as well, who's a kind of one of the Brits, isn't he? Who's made it over into
he's from the Isle of Wight, isn't he, Josh?
Yeah, and he won an award at the Angoulême, didn't he?
Yeah, he was in competition at Angoulême this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So he won an award there for, I'm not sure if it was Tedward. No, Goiter won the award, wasn't it? But yeah, I mean, it's just filled with absolute fucking filth. But it's beautifully drawn and it's absolutely hilarious. And I asked for it for Christmas, and my mum bought it for me along with one other book. It should have been 3 books, but I got 2. I don't want to talk about it right now. It's painful. She's a bitch. But basically, my mum looked through it and I opened my present. I was like, "Oh, amazing! Thanks, this book." And she's like, I can't believe you made me buy that. And then she just kind of walked off.
So I think she's on a watch list or something now.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's brilliant. I totally recommend going to buy it. It's just full of loads of crazy antics, full of drugs, full of sex, full of weirdness, drawn in, a really fun, beautiful kind of style that we all need. I mean, I don't need to go too much into it because, I mean, most of us know this guys and what they kind of get up to. But I highly recommend Werewolf Jones and Sons, the deluxe summer fun anal. It's great.
Good. Always good in the summer.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Tony, would you like to go next?
My first one is Reluctant Sadist, number 8, sent to us by Hal Weaver. We got a review copy of this sent through to me. I reached out to him. He'd finished it, and he said, "Oh, send it to me." And he sent it from Riga in Latvia. How cool is that?
Oh, that's cool.
Riga.
That is cool.
Yeah. This really is the sort of thing that I dig. I sent you guys a picture of it, didn't I? Black and white, zine size, I'm going to say, crammed with content, and it's very comfortable in its own sort of wacky skin, which I think is good. I'd previously seen Hal's work in his story in Respecto in Ugly Mug 7, which I talked about, which is one of the books that I got at the Satanist book market. this series actually began in 1985. It ran 7 issues through to the end of the 80s. Howe dropped the project to become a sculptor. And then 30 odd years later, he found his way back to it. So that's quite cool. Pages 1 and 2 has Hal himself declaring that he's back and not dead yet. Which kind of, as a similar sort of old bloke, I kind of like that. The covers, it's a bit like, it's meant to be a tree, like knots in a tree, but
I was going to say it looks like a tree.
You see it as a face, which I kind of like that thing. And the opening story is quite. I think it's about how it discusses a hat worn by, I think, him, and the outrageous stories he has about the hat. Raquel Welch apparently wore it in on the set of 1 Million Years BC. It's farts can be transformed into rose petals through the hat's power. So it's sort of crazy, wacky, out there kind of stuff. The next story shows that gnarled tree that we saw on the cover, and how compares the world of the frozen forest, which I'm guessing is in Riga or in Latvia somewhere, and what he calls tumor trees. So each of the lumps on the bark of the tree being tumors, and asking, and then he asks the machine. He says, "I'm going to ask my machine about it," and his machine is his Google phone, which I think is really interesting. And it's a phone that it compares modern technology with the aberrations of nature, and what are these growths comparable to? Is it something we need to cut out? Is it a disease? Is it nature? How does nature affect us? How is technology affecting nature? Very interesting.
Deep shit.
Some deep shit, but done with a sense of humour. Yeah, I think a little bit poignant as well. And you can tell there's that experience sitting behind his art, which I quite like. There's a genuine freedom in what he does there. It's not all perfect. You know, it's parts of it are sort of doodly. You know, it doesn't conform to any of the. These days we're very swish and professional and almost over professional, aren't we? Sometimes in these comics we get out that are very refined and cut down exactly and graphic designed and stuff. I like that there's this there as well. I think there's a place for both, but I like that there's this there as well. You can go and look for his stuff, work by him. I would say this is probably a good place to start. You can pick up Ugly Mug as well. You can find him at www.weaverworks.com. So works is WERX. Instagram, he's weaverworks. And he sent us little notes and he's listener. So thanks a lot,
nice.
Dougie. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And please more of this, because I think we really need this. That we don't. As much as I like the sort of the produced stuff, I don't like the overproduced stuff. There's a coldness to it. This is experimental. It's out there. It's a man sitting there drawing and doing what he likes and sticking out into the world. And as I say, he sent it to us for free, and it's very kind of him. And I'm on board now. So there you go.
I think that's a good point, though, Tony. Like just the fact that visually how things work with the story is also important, isn't it? And I think, like you say, seeing those pages you just shown does have that kind of depth to it and that kind of thinking piece, because it looks hand drawn, it looks made, it looks like kind of quite real. Whereas Dan's work, for example, where it's like detailed and it's really well kind of produced and the colours are incredible, you kind of need that because it's kind of action and there's kind of a lot going on, isn't it? So it's that kind of
it's only a medium, man. There's space for all kinds of things, I think. And we shouldn't dismiss it because it's kind of it's probably not gone through as like a super printer or anything. It's just done. I really liked it. I really like that to own that as well. Sort of thing that when I'm long dead, someone will go through my comic collection and go, "Oh, fucking hell, what's this? It's quite interesting." It's like that, isn't it? There you go.
Historians will go through that collection, Tony.
Yeah, I've already had a couple of messages from people who own comic shops. I'm not saying who they are, saying, "What are you thinking about doing with your comic collection later on?" Oh, you mean when I'm dead?
When you're dead, can I have?
You're fucking not having it, my friend.
I'm going to do one of those fucking Viking things, get all my shit buried with me.
Yeah. All my copies of Burn X-Men
are
going in the fucking coffin.
We'd have to get excavators in for Tony, wouldn't we?
I'm going to be buried like the pharaohs of old. Even the comic shop owners will be buried with me.
Yeah.
They'll have to be, because they won't be able to pay their mortgage once I've gone.
Dan, what would you like to recommend?
Well, I did have a couple of Kickstarter books lined up, and I read them, and I can't, in good faith and recommend them. So I went back to a tried and tested. I got up to date on The Hunger and the Dusk.
Oh, good man.
Issues 5 and 6. And
just taking a break, isn't it?
yes. So at the end of 6, it says Hunger and Dusk will return in summer 2024. So is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it's taken a few months off, which is perfectly fine because the way the story ends in 6, it's a good part for a break. It feels like it's time for sort of like go to the lobby and get an ice cream and a drink.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's not a massive hard stop, is it? But it's enough to just be like, okay.
Well, the story's got to this point. So it mainly focuses on Tara, which is the orc girl, and she's split off from the main party, and she's kind of the whole story is on her own, and she like reflects back on her life as when she was younger and how much harder it's got. It's just once again like a comics masterclass from Wild Goose. He's just absolutely fucking lovely stuff. It's
almost a bit more personal, this issue for me.
Totally, yeah. It's almost like a character study of the one orc character.
Yeah, the foot's off the accelerator a little bit, isn't it? On this one, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't feel happy that I was waiting for that full on driving straight into a relationship situation with her and the human.
I quite like that they've taken that off road a little bit because I presume they're going to circle round for that.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah,
making us wait on they're moonlighting us
because otherwise it's just straight away like, oh, let's go for it, baby.
There's certainly some interesting details about like her when she was a kid growing up and her relationship with the other main orc in the story. That was it was a good way to sort of highlight that, which hopefully, how is that
politics as well.
Yeah, how is that going to inform what we read going forward? Do you know what I mean? That's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Generally, I honestly, if you've not got on this book, I'd really recommend it.
I'm guessing there's a trade coming out. Is there anytime soon?
I did look it up on Amazon. There is a trade coming around. I hopefully have all the extra covers because each issue's got about 3 or 4.
Yeah, I bought a couple of variants when I bought issues.
IDW collections.
They're really nice.
They normally
can be pricey.
Yeah, but they normally do have the collections. When I've been reading, no, it's not IDW that does that. I was trying to think of someone else. In their collections, do they have all the variants in there?
Sometimes I think, yeah.
Some books do and some books don't.
It needs a hardback, doesn't it? It needs a Bond Dessiné size hardback.
I'd love to see the sort of the cover because he's got that kind of the Art Deco look going on the covers.
And I love seeing like Chris's just design work. The character sheets and stuff like that. I love seeing those elements, which sometimes they use as variant covers.
Yeah,
so I'm not such a fan of using character work as a variant cover. I prefer it to be a thing that is in.
I'd rather someone got paid to do a cover for a variant cover. Yeah, Yeah, definitely.
But
what you got, V?
My one is a Karcis #1. This.
I haven't read this yet. Oh fuck! I forgot I had this. I downloaded it in the middle of the night the other day, and I forgot about it.
Yeah, this was a Kickstarter that we shouted about. Got funded. I got the.
It's got Nathan on the art.
Yeah, deluxe digital is what I got. So I got the PDF. This is Karcis #1, an investigative horror for mature readers. Paranormal investigator Paul Karcis becomes entangled in a mystery that uncovers horrifying forces at work in a snowy Alaskan town. When he is called to investigate a mauled and ravaged body discovered in a snowy small town, Karcis becomes entangled in a mystery that uncovers horrifying forces at work in the frigid community of Thompson Pass, Alaska. Now, this is the creator and writer is Brian Hawkins. Creator and artist Nathan Kelly, our buddy and amazing artist.
Dude, I love his art.
Letterer Francisco Zamora. Colors Dom Matthias. And design by Logical Case. This is out from both Feral Kingdom Studios, which is Nathan's work, and Brian's Productions, which is Blax Trauma Productions, which is BLAX Trauma. It's a great first issue, this. Very much that classic. Maybe because I've just started watching the new True Detective series as well, so I'm in that sort of Alaskan vibe, mysterious. You're not quite sure what's going on. Certainly in this first issue, there is subtle hints that there may be paranormal stuff going on, but doesn't so much reveal it in the first issue. But you get a sense of who the players is. It starts off with a classic. We see it, and it just says now, and there's a character being videotaped. And someone saying to them, "You're going to die, and this is the reason why." And then we cut back, and we're introduced to that character. I don't want to put any spoilers in because you've got to read it for yourself, but then you're introduced to the start of the story and you meet Karcis. I didn't know Karcis was the name of the actual... So that almost made me like it more, because I love it when like a detective is like the name. Maybe that's just my love of Columbo, Miss Marple and all that stuff. You know, when the detective is the name of the
Ellery Queen. Yeah.
But Karcis is that sort of gruff, grizzled kind of guy. He's a little bit fish out of water because he is in a very remote Alaskan town. A lot of the locals just don't like him because of who he is, and there's a bit of racial tension underlying because, you know, the fish out of water, it plays into that. Not heavy-handed with it. I really like the sort of the balance of it. We kind of get we get the tension and we get what's going on, but it doesn't take away from the mystery or everything else. It just enhances it, which I like that. I mean, it looks glorious. It looks beautiful. Nathan's work is. I'm a sucker for these sort of landscapes anyway. You know, the middle of nowhere, Alaskan, Rockies, all of that. There is a
White Out, all those sort of books, great, aren't they?
And Nathan's work, obviously, like his use of shadow comes into when people are sort of going into these log cabins and the lights are all on, but these dead bodies are there and there's just these candles around them, so it's quite specific. There's something specific about these murders. So his lighting is so on point with this, and lovely sort of shadows. Like it's got that Eduardo Riso. It's just silhouettes of people sometimes, which really works well. He does this little design, little feature that I didn't notice until like a couple of when I had a sort of reread, and I noticed it, which I really, really appreciate. Which I can't think of too many other people have done it. This is in a cold, harsh environment. This kind of place. It's obviously an environment with a community, but Nathan, whenever you see characters outside, you can see their breath. There's like a little bubble of like the breath.
Oh, cool.
And that's all the way through the book. I did not notice it until the second time round. But it adds it's just that little detail, another level of sort of like just realism to it.
Yeah.
Especially
it gives you an idea of temperature and stuff though, doesn't it?
Completely.
A lovely little detail.
Yeah. But
I'm hoping to see him because I'm booked up now for Heroes, which is where we met last year. Yeah, I hope he's got a table there. That'd be cracking.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely like an artist that should be. You know, he's on one of our just watch.
I don't even know how. If I was an artist and given that thing, all right, you're in a cabin, dead bodies on the floor, all illuminated by candles. I go, how the fuck am I going to do that?
Yeah,
like Scooby Doo. How you approach that?
He does. He does some interesting sort of panel work as well. It'd be interesting to see what the script was like for this as well. But because clearly this is a big collaborative project, you can tell that these two guys have come together for this. And they know the sort of subject matter. They know the inspirations. I mean, we clearly see what this sort of thing's kind of inspired by, but it's becoming its own thing. Like, I'm just a sucker for sort of page design as well. So when you see a page where it's someone walking from one side of the page from the left to the right, but you just put a little frame around one of them, so they're on the page twice. The background doesn't move, but they're on the page twice. But by putting a little frame around one of them, it has that sort of illusion of movement
in space. Yeah.
Which is
how many pages is this, V?
I think it's about 32, 40 pages.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's some back matter as well. There's a letter from Brian in the back about like what he's creating here and future books that are going to be coming out. This is the only downside to this book for me is because it's an indie comic. There's going to be an issue 2.
We've got to wait now.
But you just got to have the wait. Whereas, I
as soon as you were talking about it, I was thinking, when's the second one out?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. Oh, just let's see where this goes, because they've left it on a nice... There's a character that's spoken about. There's a cliffhanger that makes you think, oh, that's going to be interesting. That's a game changer. So, yeah, Karcis #1. It was on Kickstarter. Obviously, if you go to feralkingdomstudios.substack.com, if you sign up to a Substack, you can get a...
Yeah, I'm on that one.
List.
Yeah.
This was on the Kickstarter, so if you look for Karcis #1, which is Karcis. Blax Trauma are on social media at BlaxTrauma_prod. So that's BLAX Trauma_prod. And it was one of those... I know we sort of pledged to it and stuff, but as it was sort of being funded, I remember when it was sort of funded, there was like these little sort of videos. I don't know why I like it. I appreciate when creators do this, when they just put a really appreciative video. Thanks so much for all the support. We've just, we've just been funded. It's just a little thing that sort of endears you to the creators more. So yeah, keep an eye out for them, because I'm looking forward to seeing what else they got coming. So that's mine.
Nice one.
Nice.
Tony.
Last one. So another bit of horror. Hound. By Mad Cave Studios.
Yeah, this cover looks fucking great.
Fucking mate, look inside it. Fuck me. Writers Sam Freeman and Sam Romesberg. Artist Rodrigo Vasquez. Letters Justin Birch. Editor James B. Emmett. Came out 28th of February this year, 1999. If you're buying it physically in dollars, but it's already on Global Comics, so I guess they're dropping at the same time. Global Comics are getting it the day of the release, which is pretty cool.
That's great.
96 pages, full color, paperback graphic novel. The cover is, as you mentioned, V, it's the open jaws of a wolf, but in that contains British soldiers from World War One, which is I don't know. It's just,
but just to describe, they're sort of. It's almost like they're walking out of a cave, isn't it? It's like that. Yeah. It's
a weird one, isn't it? I didn't expect to see characters more reminiscent of British weekly comics from Mad Cave Studios. I don't know why, but I didn't. Didn't want unpleased. So the story is a man. It opens on It's got a start and a finish that are from later. So at bookends, there's this man is out walking his dog, and he finds the diary of a soldier in a wolf's den. The wolves are asleep, and he finds this diary, and he takes it home and he puts the book out and he starts reading. And the book is narrated. So the comic, therefore, is narrated. And when we get the story of this soldier, and it's the greatest, brilliantly poetic. Like, I think when you go to a heavy subject like World War One, which if you're in the UK, is a massive thing for English literature, and Siegfried Sassoon and all these sort of people, and it's got there's a real resonance, depression, darkness to World War One, isn't it? That we don't always see with World War Two adventure stories, Private Barrow, he's the main character, a young English kid from London. He meets his senior officer. He arrives in the trenches, meets his senior officer, who tells him that his experience in the sewers of London would be of use to a special squad who are working in the south of, I guess, France. He's given a gas mask and told that he's now part of this. That's now part of his uniform, and he has to wear it all the time because of the gas. And then he meets his new unit, who are called the Hounds. One of them tells them that they need to get going. So they go, "Come on, kid, we need to get going. The sun is setting." And you begin. At that moment, you think, "What's this about?" But at this moment, I just think it's a World War One story, but don't really presume it's anything more at that point. And they head out into this terrible, muddy wasteland, and there's this broken down, shelled house. And Barrow wanders in there, and he's wandering around having a look. His first time out, in battle or in the battlefield as it was. And he's quickly called down into his team, down into the basement. And what they've got in the basement is they've got what I think are German soldiers hanging up, tortured. And they say to him, "You've got to kill them." They invite him into the ceremony to kill these men and be born anew. It's the phrase they use. And you're thinking, right, this has taken more of a horror turn. This is very strange. And he doesn't want to. And he legs it off after thinking something's not right here. This isn't right. And it turns out that these men, it's hard to make out. It's never properly telegraphed, never properly explained. And in a way, I kind of like that. These men are not, I put them as part cannibal, part wolf. So they're almost like a bunch of just crazy cannibals. As they're eating these people as well. And as he's been chased, he runs into one of them who offers him the heart of a dead body to eat. And he says, as part of the ceremony. And he manages to get away. He says, "I've saved the heart for you." And when he's doing that, a wolf appears by his side, by the innocent soldier's side, to protect him. And you think, what's this? What's going on? Yeah. What's his link with the wolves? Really interesting.
What is going on? Yeah.
And it becomes this sort of urgent, violent chase through the empty, muddy fields of the, just dirty, evacuated area of this World War One. And Barrow becomes very changed. There's a moment in a house. This is about halfway, so I'm going to explain this bit. There's a moment in a house. He goes in there and he's hiding. And he's thinking, these men are just, these feral men are after me. And there's also German soldiers about. So he's kind of trying to hide from them both. And he's hiding in this house, and he looks out the window, and there's a crew of like disgusting looking German infantrymen with guns. And he's keeping quiet, and he thinks, "I'll hide in the cupboard." And he opens the cupboard, and this woman, a local woman, jumps out with a knife and tries to kill him because she thinks he's an enemy soldier. And in order to keep quiet, to stop the soldiers coming, he has to kill her.
Oh, fuck. Yeah,
and it's this massive turning point in the book. So this happens, and then it really gets dark after that. It's really interesting. There's a absolute genuine poetry to the writing in this. It's really thought out. There's some lovely single page images of just the landscape of where he is.
Okay.
It's very important you put people in where they're acting. You know, you put people in the position so you can understand from place and point of view. And he's painted as young and naive, but he's got this real guts, man. He's a fighter. He defeats, he's managed to stab a couple of them and get away. And I think genuinely, when we, as comic readers, Charlie's War, do you know what I mean, is where we go to immediately with World War One, don't we? But you've also got stuff like All Quiet on the Western Front. Like I say, you've got war poetry and stuff like that. Birdsong is that famous book, isn't there, from a few years ago? And it really plays into that feeling of just despair and darkness and overbearing death is everywhere. It may as well be a fucking other planet, this whole environment that he's fighting in. The art is lovely. There's a real looseness to it. There's a real instinctual looseness to it. Not to stop you understanding who everyone is, but it's not superhero art, put it that way. But there's a real motion to the running and the chase and everything, a real energy to it. And yeah, absolutely pleasant surprise. I've not read much Mad Cave. I don't know about you guys. Have you read?
No.
They're published. They've been coming up for. I think they're celebrating 10 years. I think.
Yeah, I thought, wow, is it that long? I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
I think they've just been churning out stuff, and I know they've been mentioned more and more over the past year. I think Mad Cave.
Yeah,
some really interesting stuff.
It's weird because, like, usually if someone said to me, "Oh, there's this book. It's about werewolves and a war," I'd have been like, "Another one, eh?" Like, just not. I wouldn't. Didn't really do much for me, but just how you kind of put it there, and like the fact that they're showing war in an unglamorous way, and it's not this kind of romantic awesomeness to be a werewolf and ripping people apart in a war. You're kind of like, that's a really interesting look at a kind of common used narrative, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's like Fiends of the Eastern Front or something like that. It's not quite.
I mean, it's funny when you think about it, isn't it? It's like war, it goes without saying, is just hell, and throughout history, being a werewolf is cursed, and it's a hellish existence, and yet throughout a lot of narratives, it's be a werewolf in war. It's cool. Goes against.
It's almost like I'm not sure. It's almost because it doesn't stray too far into the supernatural. Yeah. So I'm not sure if these are just. It's almost like a cult, but why are the wolves protecting him? It's very strange.
Which makes it scarier in itself, doesn't it?
It's interesting. Really, really good. Yeah. I mean, we recently had that Sergeant Rock versus Nazi zombies thing, so we get it these days, don't we? Yeah. But
there's a time and a place if it's delivered right.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, it's the shorthand, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly. It's probably fucking hard to write as well. Yeah. Like, Tony always harps on about write what you know, and like, I would never do a war book because I've got zero experience in anything like that. I would not know how to write it.
But you are a werewolf.
Yeah. Well, no, I could write. I feel like I could write a war book in terms of it was just blowing shit up and people attacking each other. Like that would be difficult. But if I had to write one that was an actually emotive piece, I could not do that because I've got no idea.
We can't draw on that.
Like when we did George Mayhem. I mean, obviously Tony wrote that.
But a little bit more, didn't we?
Yeah, but I mean, I had no experience in being in any sort of situation like that at all. So it's kind of like, fucking hell, this is. Got a good writer on it.
In a way, it's the PTSD is something that is in all war stories that are well written to me.
Yeah, massively.
Cool. Yeah, that's my second one, guys. There you go.
Nice one. That sounds great.
Yeah. I've added
nice
that
happy ending.
Nice reading list. Well, I'll tell you something that on a bit of a positive note that I'm quite interested about. If you go to Mad Cave, they have a classic character, and a new comic is starting from them. Right?
Oh, I know this. It's not Space Ghost, is it?
No.
Oh, no, go on then.
Dick Tracy is coming back.
Yes. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Dick Tracy's coming back, and I
Dick
think
Tracy calling Dick Tracy.
Yep.
Oh, amazing.
Yep. Michael Morisi, Alex Segura, and Geraldo Borges, I think, from Nightwing. So
Michael Morisi, friend of the show.
Yep. Yeah, so it should be quite interesting. So
Was it you guys telling me about Warren Beatty, what he does?
Yeah, he makes a
rights.
movie, doesn't he, to hold the rights? Yeah.
Fucking madman. Brilliant.
So I think that's one to.
I don't mind that movie so much. I don't mind it.
I don't mind
I
it.
tell you what, I need
It's a
to.
bit forgotten, isn't it?
Yeah, I need to go. I need to go back into it.
Madonna's in it, and she and
It's got a real
Pacino's in it.
visual style to it.
I
Like,
tell you what, why don't we have an episode where we focus on Dick Tracy and also a little bit of movie. Basically for 2 hours, I want to get together with you guys and just talk
Mumble.
about Dick.
Dick.
I just want to talk about Dick for 2 hours.
I'm quite happy with 2 hours of Dick.
Yeah, brilliant.
and talking about it.
I'm just on the website. I just seen that Hound book, Tony. The fucking preview pages are incredible.
Oh, nice. Oh, good stuff.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
Lovely design to that book as well. And some amazing comics all round this week. And some great creative discussion. I love having a creative discussion. I mean, as well as all the toilet humour and everything that you get on a weekly basis, when we get into the zone, I just love it. I just love talking about all that.
There's always a snap where we switch from the puerile humour.
Yeah, and then it comes
We're not
back
just
around.
bollocks, are we?
No. Sometimes we're other body parts as well. So. But we hope you enjoyed this week's discussion. And
I did.
Oh, that's good.
Thanks, Forpe.
Yeah. He's a gem, isn't he?
A-star.
Thanks for coming on late notice.
Cheers,
Because
dude.
I forgot to fucking ring you.
Anything for you boys, you know that.
I think you sound like everyone should make a silent comic, and so I haven't done that.
No.
Have you guys?
No.
You guys are pricks, you know that. The amount of emotional...
We know that.
I know you think it's ridiculous, but I'm sure loads of people listen to you guys, and you always have this about these little bits of information, but we do generally take it on board and go, actually, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like I have a little book where I note down things you probably don't even realise that you sound like, that's so good. Maybe I do need to do that. You'll say things.
Yeah.
You'll say things, be like, no one's doing this in comics. I'm like, am I doing that? I'm not. Shit, I need to
The closest I came to it was when I did Black.
I can say Blax.
Yeah.
That was created. The art of that was created silently, and then the words came afterwards.
Okay.
It was one of those. Okay. It was during lockdown, and it was an artistic experiment to just tell a story with no words. And I asked a friend to come on, and we sort of co-wrote and added words afterwards. So
still available.
Yeah. And I've still got loads of pages for what comes next. So.
And George Mayhem still available. Never on anything.bigcartel.com.
George Mayhem's great. I really recommend you get that if you haven't read that.
Yeah. Have you still got any Hanks left? I keep getting asked about that. I haven't got any left.
I don't know. I'll ask Falp. He might have some.
Well,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're about
we've got a meeting next week, me and him, to discuss reprints because CKF sold out so quickly. We need to sort of consider what we're going to reprint, what we're going to not.
People didn't sign up to this podcast to listen to a business meeting. Put that PowerPoint away. Forget about your
slide deck.
charts.
You don't call it PowerPoint. No, they call it slide decks. Have you had that yet?
No.
They're going about slide decks in the office. What the fuck are you talking about?
I know more about that than you think I do, but it's one of the only things I do know about. But we hope you enjoyed this week's episode and everything we talked about. If you want to keep the conversation going, then there's several different ways you can do that. You can join the Slack community. There's a wonderful group of people on there. There's different channels. Get in touch with us. Easy to join. People are joining all the time. Loads of different channels, whether it be like just podcast discussion or rants or pound shops or just art threads.
Pound shops on fire this week.
Yeah, man.
All
good shit there.
Yeah.
I've got so much put on that pound shop. I've got like 30 books I need to put on there.
I keep putting it off.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's the postage.
Yeah.
Bunsey put some great 80s and 90s books on there this week.
Yeah.
Artists Against Raging Homophobia. That book is a lot of money on eBay, and he's put it up for a very reasonable price. Well worth having a look.
So join the community if you want to find out what that price is.
Do join the community.
And if there's anything else you want to talk about, you can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on social media. On Instagram, we're at awesomecomicspod. On X, we're at the awesomepod. Oh no, I still call it Twitter.
I know why. Twitter. And you keep hearing people on fucking TV go, you can follow us on X and just tweet to us. It's like, you can X us. It's like, you can X me.
Doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Musk is such a wanker, isn't he?
I love calling it X.
Yeah.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
You can X me, darling.
Get me right in the X.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's marks the spot.
X marks the spot.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to us, whether it's on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe. Say something nice about the show, because we're fragile man babies.
I haven't had a comment for ages.
Well, there you go.
Because no one listens to shit on Apple. That's what everyone's on Spotify.
Oh, you would be surprised. But that's true. You can listen to us on Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher.
And you can recommend as well.
Look.
And you can recommend on Spotify. You should do that.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Can I do the rest of this bit now?
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, you can listen to us on Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What other networks are we on, Tony?
What other networks, Tony?
We're also on the Pod Network. Would you like me to be the cat?
Well...
Oh dear.
A little bit of politics for you there.
Yeah,
I get that reference.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
yeah. Where can people find us online, etc.? Tony.
Neveronanything.com. The tops and bottoms, as I like to call it, is out every Wednesday morning.
Fantastic. Love that.
Thank you, mate.
And where can people find you, Dan?
You can find me on Twitter at Vanguard Comics.
I believe it's called X.
Comic.com.
Nice. You can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. The wonderful Forpe. Where can they find you and your work and your comics?
You can find me on Instagram at Mr. Forpe, Forpe. If you want to read Drusa, just DM me and I'll send you a free copy.
Do that.
Digitally. Do it.
And buy a copy of George Mayhem.
There you go. If you can buy a copy, yeah. In fact, I think we were in the. I think we were on eBay, aren't we? Isn't there? What was it we found on eBay the other day?
Yeah, I was up for quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Dan, your hair looks very blonde. Have you put lemon?
You say this every week, and it's me going grey.
Oh, okay. looks blonde.
Nah, he's definitely got a Bros look to him, hasn't he?
Yeah.
It's grey. Look, it's going grey.
That's lemon.
Yeah.
You put
Just
lemon
out
juice
of
in
screen.
There's been no fucking sun.
There's a synthesizer just underneath him somewhere.
Flock of seagulls over there.
Yeah. Oh, come on. But we hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're happy, healthy, doing well, reading loads of comics, because we love you very much. Don't we, Forpe? Don't we love them?
We fucking love them.
And because obviously you have discussions with Tony, like business discussions, comic creation discussions, etc. In those meetings, does he say he loves them?
No.
Oh.
I know.
Well, you keep saying I'm a mind goblin. Don't you? You keep saying I'm a mind goblin.
Mind goblin, yeah.
D's nuts.
Mind goblin.
No.
He's not going to let you get there.
It's not. Jesus Christ. Time to pull the ripcord.
You will get there. You'll get there.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Zach, for that joke. Bye.
Everyone, from Dan, Tony, Forpe, and myself, have a brilliant week. Read loads of comics. Keep making loads of comics. And as always, what should they do, gents?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
I'll tell you what, that's getting better now that we've got the cameras on.
Yeah, we can sync up a bit more.
I was a bit self-conscious.
It's not like you.
Big camera shy.
I mean, you should put some trousers on. Bye, everyone.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Love you.